We help aspiring kettlebell coaches become confident as kettlebell practitioners and educators in only 10 weeks. If you want to find out more about our method, check the first link in the description and sign up for our waiting list.
Yeah, I mean, I think clarity is extremely important. Like I like knowing where people stand. Like I hate it when people have these hidden thoughts that they don't, it's like, just tell me if you're going to show up or not. I
Yeah,
think
it's totally
it leads to
easy.
mutual respect,
And you know what's funny is I had these from these marketing guys that I've been studying, and that I got some from one guy I bought a course from, which we talked about last time. And couple of folks were like, yeah, they talked about 40 minutes about marketing, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually when you have your own business, it's fairly interesting to hear points of view from other people when it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
And I remember this one guy, he said, when you get the first leads rolling in, right? So you are, let's say you're running in a promotion on Facebook or whatever have you. And then you get these leads rolling in. And then they say there's two things. The first thing is speed to lead. So the faster your reaction time, I think the show up rate or the interest rate, I don't know what it was, but some kind of rate that they probably become your customer is like up to 400%. If you download an ebook or you sign up for the promotion and 1 minute later your phone goes brrrt, like, hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm the guy from the ebook. Oh, wow, that's fast, right? So speed to lead, that's one thing. When they say you have to be fast, and then the other guy says, yeah, you have to follow up forever. So follow up with your prospects forever. And then this last guy says, the important work is to keep following up with people, even if they miss deadlines, they miss calls, they tell you that they show up, they book a call. So in our case, currently we have a system where you can book a call. First of all, you have to go through a form, and then the form pre-qualifies you. Even though I've learned a couple of things there too, you can qualify all you want. Most of the time, people show up who are not your perfect avatar, but it's totally fine. You just serve some value. Maybe you downsell them or something. Or sometimes I even don't sell them, right? I tell them, hey, listen, you go check out some YouTube videos, you're good. And then the guy says, even if they book a call with you, right? So this is a decision that this gal is taking. It's, I'm going to book a call, which means at this time frame, this coach or this person will be blocked. I can't take anybody else. So I'm going to intentionally book a call with this guy, and then I'm not going to show up. And you have to follow up with these people forever. And something in me, and that's what you said the last time. I know that these marketing heads say this, and they are highly successful with their business, and they got like millions of dollars, blah, 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 everything. Gazillion of leads and everything. But something clicked with me when you said that. It's this, listen, if you book a call with me, and life can get in the way, no worries. Make sure you tell me you want to postpone or reschedule. If you don't tell me anything, you don't show up, how high is your incentive and your determination to become a client for a high-ticket program that costs lots of money? Zero.
Yes, I have two questions or points of commentary. So the question though, when they signed up, did they put down a deposit, or was there like money in escrow to make sure that they showed up? Was there skin in the game?
No, it's always calls are always free.
So one thing that I'm experimenting with now, which you might be interested in learning, you may have already done this, is I used to give away free trials to my online program. And I noticed that there were a lot of failed payments after the trial period ended.
Yeah, that's normal.
Right. And so I was like, I'm just going to try something new, and I'm going to make the trial period $1, like pretty low bar. But they have to show proof of payment one time, and it's only $1. So like, what are they losing out on, But the fact that they have to put in just like slightly more work and put in a little bit of money, for some reason, I think triggers, which is the second point that I was going to bring up. I don't know if you've read the book Influence by Dan Cialdini, but he talks about,
I think you mentioned this book the last time, right?
I don't know. I know I mentioned
I've heard it. Let me write this down.
Nassim Taleb I talked about, but
Yeah.
maybe a different influence. Regardless, he talks about all these
Actually,
different
pardon me,
psycho.
Eric.
Yeah.
Influence, and the name was
Oh, Dan Cialdini. It's like an Italian
Dan
name.
Cialdini. Yeah, I've heard it in from these marketing guys. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, okay. So yeah, similar. Okay, but one of the things he brings up a lot is this idea of consistency bias, and that people like to view themselves their future actions based off of their previous actions. And if someone does something once, then more likely than not, they're going to be doing that again, just because they've proven to themselves that like that's how they identify. So if I've shown up once, then now that's a part of I'm someone who shows up, you know?
Yeah.
And similarly, if you tell yourself that you are X person, then you're going to do that. So it goes both ways. It's like I tell myself I'm going to show up, therefore I'm going to show up, or I have shown up in the past, therefore I'm going to show up again. Regardless, the point being is like leading it back to like marketing and business practices. So that's why I changed my trial period to $1, and I don't do free trials anymore. And it has reduced failed payments to like nearly zero. It's crazy.
Hmm.
So I don't think I'm going to go back, even though I got
Yeah.
more signups
Yeah.
initially.
Of course
So
you did.
I don't know at like the net result of it. Um, but back to your original point about me caring about the type of people that I want to work with, um, it sort of filters out the unserious people from the serious people. So something that maybe you want to consider, but it's just something that I've done recently. I started it like 2 weeks ago, and yeah, I've noticed like a big difference.
Hmm. Yeah. And interesting that you mentioned this. I do this,
You
but
do
I
the
have
pay trial?
yeah. But I have two in the business. I have two pathways that you can go. There's either do it yourself or done for you. So done for you is you want my time, you want my coaching, you want me to be a coach, you want me to train you, you want me to schedule your workout, you want me to show up and push you and motivate you. Doesn't matter whether that's in-house or online, right?
Yeah.
So that's the high ticket route where people have to pay lots of money because they want my time. That's pathway one. And pathway two is the courses. This is the do it yourself. And I
Yeah.
have the same system like you in place. I have you
Good.
get started for $1.
Good. Okay, great.
And but what I've noticed is since we have lots and lots and lots of signups, we have lots of people then reaching out via email as soon as they sign up for the $1, and then they say, "Yo, bro, where do I cancel?"
Oh, those are
I
annoying.
like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny. You know, it got to the point where I had the same impression. I was like, "That's annoying," so I quit. I said, "You got to get started with the 1990 for the," and that's a
Okay.
monthly. You have to understand. We have a big course library with hundreds of workouts and lots of tutorials, over 17 courses. And so you pay a membership where you can get access to it. I call it Kettlebell Plus. So it's $19.90. And then because it got so much on my nerves that people were like, they sign up and then they immediately want to quit. Then I was like, I'm gonna cancel this. You have to pay initially, but then
Mhm.
the sign up stopped. And so I went back and I actually looked at the way how Funk Roberts does it. So Funk Roberts, I don't know if you know this
I
guy.
gotta talk to him. You should have him on.
Yeah, I reached out to him. I had him on twice, and I reached out to him via email, but I didn't get nothing back. I think I got to reach out to his Instagram or Gmail because with Funk, I love Funk, man. Funk is so high energy. He's
I
like my
know.
brother, you know. It's like with certain people you get connected. It's like, man, you're my brother from another mother, man. This is so
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Funk always does these get started for $1. And he's
Okay.
been in the game for way longer than the both of us.
Yeah.
And so I reverted back to it. And then I said, okay, you know what? I take the annoying folks who, it's not even annoyance, right? I mean, they don't know how to cancel, so they write an email. It's totally fine. Totally fine. But it got to a point where I'm thinking I want to get Zendesk up front, you know, a system where that gives the email a ticket because we get so much feedback on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But that's another story. And so I reverted back to the $1 trial, and it works like magic. It's totally fine. We get these cancels, but we also get people who stay,
Yeah.
and that's just it. It has become such a big staple in our business, these online courses with the memberships, that I'm like, hey, I'm gonna continue this. And funny thing, and then I want to hear your feedback. One of the other gurus that I've heard, he's also a marketing guru. His name is Yuri El Kaim, and I think his business is Healthpreneur. And the guy says, stop doing low ticket and only focus on high ticket.
Yeah.
And while I do understand high ticket, of course, I mean, you have one client paid thousands of dollars. Of course, that's more attractive, but these whales are harder to find. And if that's my thought, if I only take high ticket clients, I cannot serve people based on the mission that I have with getting in shape with kettlebells, grabbing one, and then, being there for your family. I mean, it's not just about the money. It's about making sure that I fulfill my legacy and my mission. This is not just money related.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep doing these courses and these one-offs and these small payments where people are like, yo, I'm from Mexico. I don't have a lot of money, but with this, I got started with one of your courses for a couple of bucks and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And also, I mean, yeah, it is hard to find these whales, but also if every trainer is doing high ticket items, like where does that leave everyone else?
Exactly.
So, and a lot of times too, people who do these courses are beginners. And, if people aren't willing to pay $1 to start out, they're not going to be paying $5,000 or $10,000 either. So yeah, if you think about the total market, you need to have a good balance. And it is hard to do both though. So like offering low ticket and high ticket. And before we started recording, I was about to say I commend you. I was going through your stuff. I like to do a little bit of research before we chat. And I was like, what's Gregory up to, recently? And like you put out so much content, and doing that on top of, your regular training, it's such a high bar. And I just wanted to commend you on that.
I appreciate that.
It's motivating because it's like, okay, if he could do it, I could do it, like I post on Instagram like 2 or 3 times a week, and that's it. Because my editing takes a while just because I enjoy it.
Yeah, I see that. High quality editing. Yeah.
And you're talking about like high ticket, low ticket. There's another version of that too with like the videos. It's like how much time commitment do you want to put onto the video? You could just you could just put your camera up, record yourself, and post it. But it's like, is that going to add value? But I feel like you're like in the middle. You do both. Like there's not like insane like editing or anything, but you do add a lot of commentary, which takes a while too. So that's yeah. I just wanted to commend you on that because I was like, he puts out a lot of shit.
I truly appreciate that, Eric. But it's just getting the habit. It's the habit, and of course I've also set up my system in a way that it's very streamlined and very aerodynamic. So I don't have to. It's everything at the click of a button. If I want to record something, it takes like a couple of seconds to set up and I'm ready. I have my own gym. So all of these barriers that take you a while to set up and do and think, well, that just, and the other point is I always have this in-between mentality. The first thing that I think about is, okay, I think we talked about this the last time, and this works so well. The hero content, the hub content, and what was the latest, the third one? I forgot the third one. But these 3 types of content, right? And I have built the habit of Monday is always workout of the weekday, where I film a workout with Angie, and then I use this piece of content and distribute it among many channels. So it's one, it's a video for, we have in Kettlebell Plus, we have this one course that's called the Iron Flow. And in the Iron Flow course, every Monday you get a new workout, right? Every Monday. We started this, I mean, I've been working out since forever, but this is like now a system where I say, you know what, guys, every Monday expect a workout. And it's rather advanced, so this is where you have to work your way up to this point. So this is the content that we film. Then once we're done with the workout, we immediately grab the cell phone, right? And then we do the same workout just for a couple of reps with the exercises for Instagram as a short.
Yeah.
And then I put it out as a short on YouTube, put it out as a short on IG, and a short on TikTok. And then the next thing that I do is I film the workout and explaining it. You know, yo, this is the workout, blah blah blah. And this is where, and this
Your
is where I
intro.
then, and this is where I then plug Kettlebell Plus and say, hey, I'm gonna show you the workout how it works. But if you don't want to think, sign up for Kettlebell Plus and do it and then follow along. Boom, right?
Yeah.
So then I have one dedicated time slot of filming and editing, which I can distribute throughout the whole week. Because then it's not just for Kettlebell Plus members who can then do the workout on a regular on every Monday, but it's also for our in-house clients. That's why we call it WOW, Workout of the Week. And then all of our advanced clients in the gym, they move to that workout. And some of them, they show up on Monday, they're like, yo, I saw it. Wow, oh, it's awesome. Wow, it's very tough, looks tough. Yeah, so they already have a hint. And what I also do is I package this workout then into the newsletter. So see, it's like one piece of content goes into 1,000 directions.
So many different streams. And and as I was
I'm just checking if just that you know, I'm just checking it. I'm listening, just checking if Nikolai, you didn't see it yet.
Talking to a fellow kettlebell, I don't want to say his name or anything, but he said something interesting. He posted to Pinterest. I never even thought about doing that. You know, obviously you have
Pinterest.
Like YouTube.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's another route that you want to go. I'm gonna start scaling a bit more. I've kept it extremely lean for the past couple of years, but I've also had a lot of personal stuff going. I got married like 2 weeks ago, and so
wow, hey, congratulations, awesome.
Thanks. Nice. Now I can like finally like put my head down and like start focusing more on the scaling. But I think it's so interesting how people have so many different routes. At the end of the day, it's all, you can post on every piece of platform, right? But as you just have to put quality stuff down, and you have to be yourself too. You have to be authentic. And I think you do that really well. And I think that does come with your streamlined process too. Because you do have a lot of consistency there, and so people know what to expect. I wanted to ask you about your. I don't even want to say his name because I try to avoid.
No, say it. You're at the place of truth. Last time I talked to listener. I talked to who did I talk to? And I told him, it was Eric Duminello. I had him on a podcast, and I told him, you know what this podcast is? It's the place. It's a place of truth. And
no, I know, but I just hate putting people in the algorithm. Whatever. All right, the Paul brothers. I just don't like.
The Paul brothers.
Like when they show up in, like
the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan, right? Yeah.
One of the issues with the internet is the fact that like the most insane. We were talking last night about like the cream of the crop rises to the top.
Yeah.
But with the internet too, it's like the most insane stuff.
Yes. Exactly.
And like the whole like suicide forest thing, if you know what I'm talking.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Just being bombastic, like all these pranks. I don't like the fact that they get so popular. I don't think it's benefiting society, but because it's so outlandish, people click it, they comment on it, they share it, and so that leads it to the top. Anyway, and I saw the video that you did with about Jake Paul's swing. Was that I didn't go to the original video. I don't even know where it was from. But was he seriously doing it like that, or was that a thing for clicks? Like do you think he knows what he was doing, or you know what I mean? I know that he's a very fit guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean, anything about kettlebells or form or anything like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think he was doing it for clicks. So I think it was authentic.
Yeah. Somebody sent me this IG. Or I think I saw it. I think I saw it on somebody else's. I saw it. You got to think about this funny labyrinth of how I discovered this piece of content. I saw it on a guy who's a mentor of somebody who was on the podcast. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's Pat's marketing guy.
Okay.
I started to follow him, and then I saw Jake Paul's video on it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna save it. I have to do something. And like on the same day, they somebody sent me a WhatsApp, an Instagram, like, yo, did you see this? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do something about it. So it's funny how I found it. But Eric, let me tell you one thing. I've read 3 books of Bruce Lee. And Bruce
Right.
Lee never wrote a book himself. One of his best ones, I think, is The Warrior Within, and it's one from Brian Little. I think it's kind of like an autobiography. And since he never wrote a book himself, it's very sad because and strange how Bruce Lee passed away. He passed away from a back pain medication. He took it because he had serious back pain, and then some complications with swelling in the brain happened, and some complication with the medication. That's how he died. Really unfortunate, from a back pain injury from, I think, from the movies. But I'm digressing. So, and I'm gonna get back to Jake Paul's content or idea. I'm reading through this book, right? And there's so much stuff in there. The second book that I really recommend is called Striking Thoughts, also from Bruce Lee, and I think somebody else put it down. But Bruce Lee was ahead of his time with his idea of Jeet Kune Do. And the more I learned, the more I read it. I think when you get this book and you get my book and you swift through the pages, you skim through the pages, you see almost everything's marked. I'm like,
You taking notes on everything?
all the time. I'm like, hey, oh my God, the pen almost got no more ink in it. So much.
You ever go back to them, or do you just sort of take them down and like leave them?
No. Some of them I wrote them down. Some of them are also I rephrase them in the podcast because repetition is reinforcement. So then it sticks to the brain, right?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to go through Striking Thoughts again. But one thing that is so really striking in the true sense of the word is he says, I'm using no style as a style. I'm using no limitation as a limitation. And this is exactly how I feel about kettlebells. He felt the same way about martial arts. He said, when you are really honed in on this idea of style, you are confined, you're not yourself anymore, and you are just in a better cage. And then there's the 3 stages of cultivation, which I'm repeating it for the 3rd time, and now it really sticks. And I've added my stuff on top of it. And then I'm going to get back to Jake Paul. And look who's in. Look who's in. Yo, here he comes. Let me get Nikolai in first. Yo. Nikolai, where you at? Nikolai, we're already recording, so that you know. Don't say anything negative. All right, where you at? You got to turn the camera on.
Is your mic on, Nikolai?
Mic on? Is your mic on? Nikolai, we can't hear you. Let me see. Well, come on, Nikolai. I have something very interesting to share, and I can't wait. I don't want to lose the thought.
I'll keep you on track.
Yeah, keep me on track. Let's see. Maybe he's like, yo, I gotta jump in, and now he's setting up everything. So I still see the big A. Yo, where you at?
Amber's account.
Yeah, it's Amber's account. And man, the conversation that I had with Nikolai a couple of days ago, it was just fascinating. I truly believe the pro kettlebell.
Did you do a podcast with him?
Again, pardon me?
Did you do a podcast with him?
We've recorded it, but we've shared so much sensitive information that I was like, no, I'm not going to share it.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, people be like, no, I want to know what Grant was talking about with Nikolai. What are they saying?
There's gonna be some conspiracy theories that you're hiding.
Yeah. We shared some conspiracy stuff. Yeah. We both believe in the same. We
so
think
you're
lizards
talking
rule
about
the earth. Yeah.
So you're talking about Bruce Lee.
Yeah. So the 3 stages of cultivation. Let me see. I have to ask now. I think I've unmuted you, Nikolai. You should be able to. Let's see. All right, take your time, Nikolai. When your face pops up, I'll see that you're ready. Or if it doesn't work, just rejoin again, Nikolai. If things are, sometimes, Zoom can be messy. So the 3 stages of cultivation, right? So the first stage, and I love this so much, man. I believe like Bruce Lee was my mentor, or I'm part of his nature, how he thinks. So stage number 1 is the stage of innocence and instinct. and you have to follow me with this. So you realize at this stage your level of uncertainty, your level of ignorance, and you realize that you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, when you do something at that stage, oh, he's probably going to join again. Now, when you do something at that stage, here's what's happening. You are very unscientific, but you are yourself. Right? That makes sense, right? You're truly yourself. And if we let's just assume you're doing a kettlebell swing, right? It looks completely unscientific, but it's you.
It's what you are, yeah.
It's
how you would naturally do it without
exactly.
guidance. But
exactly.
I know I want to let you continue. I just want to add one caveat because I think he was trying to emulate what he's seen before, and so he wasn't he didn't just.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, continue. I'm liking where this is going.
Yeah, you're right. So your movements are instinctive. Anything that you do, even if you've watched something, right? So let's just assume you've watched Eric does kettlebell. Yo, here we go. Oh, you're not at the gym? You're not. Hey, hey, where you at, Nikolai?
The world is his gym.
Yeah.
I don't think he can hear us.
No, you can't hear us. Can you hear us, Nikolai? Yeah, he's trying to.
I don't even think he can see us.
Yeah, I don't he's doing his thing, and I don't know if he knows that he's being recorded. Nikolai, can you see us? Can you hear us?
Connecting to this car's Bluetooth.
But wait. Let me send him. Because it's. Yeah. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Awesome.
What's up, Nikolai?
I can hear you now. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right.
You're not at the gym. What?
Technical stuff today.
You on the road?
Yeah, I'm on the road. I'm helping Aiden Jones out. Aiden Jones has a kettlebell workshop at the Pro Club in Bellevue, Washington, and I'm helping him out. And sorry, I double booked myself a little bit, but I'm here.
All right, so you're going back to your home, right? Going back home, and then, or what?
What's that?
Are you going back home now? Driving back home?
No, I'm driving to the Bellevue Pro Club, where I'm dropping off kettlebells, pro kettlebells.
All right. Working on Sunday. Oh no, Saturday. Oh, Sunday, mine. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me continue then. Nikolai, I was talking about Bruce Lee's 3 stages of cultivation. That's a philosophy, a concept that Bruce Lee was sharing. And so I was at stage 1 because we were talking about, I don't know how we got here. We talked about the Jake Paul thing, right? The Jake Paul swing.
Bring it back after this.
Exactly. So I'm going to bring it back. So let's recap real quick. So you have stage number 1, right? It is the stage of innocence and instinct. You are very instinctive. Your movements are not scientific, but you are yourself, and you realize that you have to probably change something. It is a state of ignorance that you realize and recognize, wow, if I want to continue this, I probably need some help, right? So what are you doing then? When you are at this stage and you have enough intelligence that you realize that you want to move further down the line, then you got to get some coaching, right? So let's just imagine you're getting coaching, right? So imagine this one arrow that points down, and now you arrive at stage 2. Now what happens at stage 2? Stage 2 is the stage of information and instruction. Now what happens? This is a very mechanical phase. Now you have to stop being yourself. You are being taught. You're being taught the skills, you're being taught the exercises, you're being taught the science, but you lose yourself in the process. And I can vividly remember this because as I was learning these exercises from Steve, I remember how I had to overcome my body's initial limitations and hurdles from the bodybuilding stuff that I was doing all the time. I was completely stiff and everything. So I think everybody had this experience with kettlebells. You have to loosen up a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
So then, here's the beautiful thing. You are at that stage for a very long time, right? The stage of information and instruction. And now, lots of people are stuck there. They don't continue on. They're always in this mechanical phase. They're like, okay, this is how I do it. This is blah, 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 blah. And then you have a couple of folks, which I would say Bruce Lee was one of them. and I would also assume that I'm one of these guys, and probably you guys too, is then you invest thousands and thousands of reps. So you apply the information forever and ever and ever and ever. And then you make it to stage 3. And stage 3 is the stage of inspiration and innovation.
Yeah.
So now what happens? You are melting science with yourself. You are achieving, Bruce Lee calls it the no thingness terminus. You are at a changeless change, you are a formless form now. Because you're now branching out on your own. You've reached, I call it the top of the pyramid. So you are at the top of the pyramid, and now you're venturing out on your own, right? And here's the beautiful thing. When you are at stage 3, where only masters reside, then you go back to stage 1. Being yourself and being truly instinctive.
But you're also like you're a different self at that point too, because you've gone through these different stages of learning. Yes. And I agree. I think when you're talking about this and visualizing it, it's like the bell curve. Coincidentally enough, you can call it the kettlebell curve. But like you're starting out from ignorance, get some knowledge, and then once you get back down to your true self, then you can start experimenting a little bit.
Exactly.
I like that.
Exactly. And I'll bring it back to Jake Paul. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Bring it back to Jake Paul.
So with this idea with Bruce Lee's idea in mind, I've stopped thinking, and we've shared this 2 days ago, Nikolai. I told you the same thing. I stopped thinking in styles a long time ago, but now with Bruce Lee's help, I've stopped completely thinking in this dichotomy of two worlds. So when I look at Jake Paul, here's what I think. Can it be a SPP exercise, a specific physical performance exercise, which are very high level, very rare, and I doubt that it's done with kettlebells. It's mostly with machines, with barbells, or with body weight. And what is an SPP exercise? An SPP exercise is highly specialized to your sport. They exist. They look very strange, but they do exist, especially for runners. I saw a couple of these, and when the coach explained them, I was like, oh, that makes total sense, right? Because of the paw back and the run and how the leg works, makes total sense. So can it be an exercise like this? Yeah, but I'm assuming it's not. Is the coach just experimenting something with Jake Paul, where he says, hey, listen, we normally do the kettlebell swing like this, but let's try it like this now? Yeah, can also be the case.
It would be weird to record that, but yes, I agree. If you're experimenting.
Yeah, but think about it. Yeah. Exactly. But, you know, lots of people record their experimentations and share it on Instagram, right? And say,
yeah, but they normally say what they're doing, though, you know?
Yeah, and you know, in the context, you can, you know, I'm playing that devil's advocate. In the context, you can say, you can see what we're doing. This guy has a boxing match, so we want to make his hips stronger, right? And you get all these, don't you get, oftentimes you get these quotes, right? We want to make your hips stronger. We want your punch faster. And then I'm using some kind of weird implement. And from, you know, if you're not very keen or you don't have lots of knowledge in that regard, and I don't have lots of knowledge about boxing, we can still say there might be some application. However, from a scientific standpoint, how the exercise is done, I think it's supposed to be done differently. And this is where I nuance this whole thing out. So I've stopped saying, this is completely wrong, why do they do this, right? So I used to be like this a couple of, let's say maybe a year ago. And now, since I'm getting into this Bruce Lee type of approach, I'm stopping this thing. It's like, yeah, it looks strange. And in some cases, of course, we can say, yeah, V-stretch is trying to do a clean, looks completely off. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. Probably, yes, right? But
yeah, that's most likely the case. Yeah,
exactly. So you can still make a video about it. I can still give feedback. But I'm kind of like moving away from trying to keep people in this space of this is what it's supposed to look like. This is how you're supposed to do it. And a couple of years down the line, it's probably, hey, Gregory from Neighbor Stock would not approve of this swing. I'll never want anybody to say this. I get these comments all the time on YouTube. Pavel wouldn't approve of this. I don't care about this. And if anybody ever uses my name in vain like this, I'd be really pissed. Because I don't like that. And that's why I think I am the Jade Kundo of kettlebell training. Yes, invest some time, become a little bit mechanical, learn the skills, and then do whatever you want.
Right. I think you would agree with my take sorry, Nikolai, I don't want to interrupt if you were going to talk, but my take when I tell clients, when I do form checks specifically, my first thing and really the most important is just making sure that what they're doing won't hurt themselves. Like that's the only thing. And so I focus more on like, don't do X as long as it's, if it's going to hurt you, if there's a chance of injury, that's the only thing that I really want to avoid. Because, you want people to keep working out and doing their thing. You don't want them to hurt themselves using a kettlebell. Although that will lead them, I think, to a common path of how they move the bell. And then from there, yeah, they can experiment a little bit more. But as long as they don't hurt themselves, I'm the same way. I used to be, when I first started out, I was more into kettlebell sport, like the style of it, because it made more sense to me. And it was like, I don't know, it was a more fluid, beautiful way to move the body. And I was like, no, let's do this hard style. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to do whatever. It's fine.
Exactly.
But Nikolai, did you see the Jake Paul video? That's how we initially started this conversation.
Yeah. And I think you can use Jake Paul as an example of what not to do, like when talking about kettlebell exercises, as long as you can explain why you shouldn't do that, and maybe point out, okay, he doesn't have good arm body contact and he's liable to mess up his back before his boxing match. But I think you can also give him a pass because he is not a kettlebell specialist. Now he's specializing in boxing, so he's spending 99% of his time perfecting his punches and defense and whatnot. And you have to allow people to do it wrong until they can get it right and not crush their egos. And I've been guilty about that. I think coaches a lot of times get in the habit of maybe over critiquing people to show off how much they know, and maybe not. We were all bad at this before we got good at it. You know what I mean? And my very first coach, he allowed me to make mistakes and not crush my ego. And I think that's why I continued on with it rather than being like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And boy, he could have pointed out a million things that I was doing wrong. But instead, he pointed out the things I was doing right. You know what I mean? And, it's easy to poke holes in Jake Paul because he's a public figure, but also, like, the guy's in incredible shape. He's 20-something years old, I think. And, he has the ability to do things wrong and be okay doing it. Now, if he was 60 years old and, a little bit more frail, he couldn't get away with that. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Agree.
Yeah. Well, the unique aspect with that video specifically was, I was saying that he was maybe trying to emulate form that he had seen, but I've personally never seen anyone push their hips back right after they hinge forward.
There's always
most of the time they just don't go far. They don't go far enough,
Yeah.
He was like making a purposeful effort to go back and use his arm. So I've never seen that before. Which is an interesting aspect to me. But anyway.
Well, I fully agree. I saw that. But you see, it's when you've been working with lots of people, you see the mistakes, the common mistakes, they're always given. They're always a given. They're always there. But this immediate snapping back at the hips, now that you're mentioning it, I was like, wow, that's new, right? The idea is to keep the hips extended, right? To boom, and then let the kettlebell fly and thrust it upwards. But I fully agree with Nikolai. It's very sage advice. It's we've all done this, right? And I make the mistakes, and I had to, when I was a little bit younger and getting started in my coaching career, I was over coaching clients. I was slapping them with the book every time they were doing something. And they were like, and I remember this one guy, we were deadlifting. He was like, Gregory, you give me so many cues, I don't even know what to focus on. And that was like a light bulb went up. I was like, oh yes, I gotta stop over coaching, man. Just keep the back straight. And then everything else, but this is still bad. Who cares, man? Just let it rip. It's okay. And
it's like an onion. You can always pull back layers.
Exactly. But you have to learn this, right? The older you get, the more coaching you get, and especially when you work with folks over 40, over 50, or 60 who never moved an inch in their life or who never trained in their life. You have to have a completely different approach. And I agree, it's like pointing out the good thing. And I'm just reading from psychology how the dopamine kick, right, that happens when people get a reward from the coach. It's like, yeah, man, you did an awesome job. Oh, that's awesome. So it makes them want to come back, right? Instead of like pointing out that everything is wrong. And let's talk about this for a minute, because I'm really on that point. I'm even I'm changing my opinion a little bit. So when it comes to injury, right? I always think, and I have the experience in gym, right, with hundreds of people. I always remember when I had this conversation with Neil May from Australia, and he's a physiotherapist and an RKC coach. And the guy was doing the belt trial. You can look it up. It's belt trial. Just type that in and you find it, by Neil May et al. So he was doing intense kettlebell training with the elderly from 59 to 79 years old.
Yeah. And
he was posting his research, his findings, very interesting stuff about, if they want to continue, how do the elderly react. And so there's there's two things that I got from this conversation. First of all, that when you swing the kettlebell, the kettlebell is 85% or even more upward force. So vertical, not horizontal force, right? Is everybody's telling you to keep the arms extended and make sure the kettlebell flies out? No, the kettlebell goes up, not front. So it's a waste of time to extend your arms if the kettlebell wants to go up, right? Keep them loose because the kettlebell travels upwards. 80% is vertical force. With the heavier weights, it becomes even more intense. And he was the only one who tested this, because he said, everybody's telling you to keep your arms straight. And I was like, okay. But the bell goes upwards. And physicists, when you talk to physics guys, they say the same thing. Well, it's normal, right? You keep the arms there. It's a bell, so it wants to go upward. If you have it like this, and it comes from the swinging motion. All right. But I'm digressing. So then he shared with me, says, you know what's crazy? They started in 2020 with the elderly guys. And he had in mind, I'm going to teach these guys the proper technique because they're elderly and frail, and they're going to break themselves and hurt themselves if they swing with kettlebells. Like everybody's taught this, right? It's so dangerous. It's like a loaded gun. We know all that stuff, right? All right. So the pandemic happens. Okay, I can't keep these guys, I can't keep them coaching anymore. I can't coach them. They're out of the game, but the trial continues. So he's like, okay, I can't coach you. So you have to continue with the trial, and I'm giving you workouts, and you keep doing it. Something like this. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Probably was a little bit different. But the point is, he wasn't able to coach the elderly on how to do the technique. Great. So he measured these guys. And he showed me the curve. By the way, it's all on the podcast. You can look it up, and he brings out the graph. It's such interesting stuff. So he has this graph of muscle contraction, and then he shows me his graph when he does a swing. You see a sharp uptick, of course, when the bell's in the backswing. We talked about this, Nikolai, right? Power development, boom. So it's a sharp uptick, and then muscle contraction goes down. He relaxes because the kettlebell goes up. Makes sense, right? And when it drops back down, there's a sharp uptick again. Great. So that's perfect technique in a form.
Can I interject on this one?
Yeah.
You both have been on a swing set, correct? As children, you played on the swing set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's really very little vertical force that happens on a swing set. You pump your legs, you shift your body forward and aft, and that causes you to swing forward and back. And if you shift your body weight fore and aft with a kettlebell swing or a snatch or a clean, that will generate that pendulum action. And this is very efficient. And you can definitely use like a vertical thrust to generate momentum. But when you're in a cyclical exercise, like I'll use snatch for example, you can move much heavier weight with a lot less effort. And I understand that this is kind of counterproductive if you're just purely trying to produce like pure muscle strength, but through weight shifting. And that's why when I talked about like the physical development of kettlebell sport athletes, why they're so bottom heavy, starting with the feet, the ankles, the calves, you know, the thighs, and then the hips. It's because they're bolted to the floor and they're actually shifting their body weight fore and aft and not so much up and down. It's more of a horizontal movement, and that's why you see that diagonal stance in, say, the snatch, which has become very popular in like maybe the past 5 or 10 years, because you can move much further if you have a staggered stance. You can cover more ground, and that's why boxers stand at that diagonal stance, because they can slip in and they can slip out. Well, you slip in and you slip out, in and out from underneath the kettlebell in the snatch. And it's, it's more powerful, and B, it requires a lot less effort. When I tell people to snatch, I say you got to snatch from the feet. The arm is almost like a rope, and you're just connected to it through this rope, but you're doing all the work through the feet. And anyways, I feel like I hear everybody saying, you know, snap the hips, or, you know, the swing comes from the hips and this and that. And that can be true, but the best of the best, the Alexander Kostov, the Ksenia Dedekanyas, the Ivan Denisov, they all snatch from the floor. And it's a longer lever when you snatch from the floor. I know we're getting into the weeds on technique here, but we just got done snatch training, and it's fresh in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, but you know, at the end of the day, Nikolai, it's still a vertical force. So the kettlebell wants to go up. So that's the aspect that Neil was proving with his data, where you see that the bell wants to go up. It doesn't want to move forward.
Momentum.
Yeah, it goes up, and what you're talking about is the leverage of the upper body, right? Of course, you bring your whole body into the motion. So when I lean back, I shift the kettlebell closer to my center of mass. I use my upper body to bring the bell up, but it's still the bell wants to go up, right? But I agree what you're saying. It's technical analysis. But just to finish my point on the bell trial, because it's actually not the point of this vertical force thing. The point is he wasn't able to coach technique anymore. And based on the graph that he showed me, he was showing me solid technique. And the way I understand solid technique is you pull just from a regular swing, the kettlebell comes into the backswing, and you're using your hips. You don't have to use it explosively like everybody is, but you know, there should be some muscle engagement from your hips as the kettlebell comes up. And we don't talk about this back and forth for these people because that's way too advanced, right? Just up and down. And based on this graph, you can tell this is solid technique. So he had the older folks do the swing. And the graph went like this. Completely all over the place, which you would expect from beginners, right? They don't understand how to contract the body, what to do with the arms. Are they tight? Are they loose? What's in the hips? It's just a perfect demonstration of what we see in practice when somebody does the swing. They're very arm dominant. The late hinge is not evident. They don't understand how to really extend the hips. We all see this, right? So 6 weeks later or 10 weeks later, right? These guys continue with the trial. They do the exercises. They come back. They all got stronger. They all feel awesome. Of course, they were sometimes training in the group to a certain extent. And everybody was like, I sleep better. I feel, you know, all these beautiful effects of strength training that we know and just regular exercise came with it. They had almost unanimous benefits, and everybody was like, I'm going to do this again. Or I want to continue. Awesome. So Neil puts them up on the thing again, hooks them up to analyze the movement. It still sucks.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say the opposite.
That's it. That's the point, Eric. The movement, the technique is still incredibly bad and flawed. But they didn't get injured. And they had amazing benefits. And this is my point, right? Everybody talks about injury. And when I consider injury, I only say one thing. I say injury happens if load exceeds capacity. I just got a monster kettlebell, an 80 kg. And next week, we're going to get the heaviest one, the 92 kg as well. If I try to clean the 80 kg up, I think I'm going to hurt myself. Because I don't think I have the strength capacity. And that's over my body weight. I don't think I can handle it. I'm very scared of it, so I'm not going to do it. But if I just do it, I probably hurt myself because I'm not able to catch it. The kettlebell comes down, it drops, and then maybe it tears, or maybe I feel something in my back, in my lats, right? So I'm going to hurt myself. So load exceeds capacity.
Right.
But if complete beginners swing a 6 kg, and if complete beginners make the right decision to purchase a pro kettlebell because it's the best kettlebell ever invented on this planet, right? They don't hurt their forearms, right? So it's all solid. I don't think they're going to hurt themselves.
I agree. I think most people can handle that weight.
That's my point, right? And just to finish my thought there, and then please jump in. And this is where this whole movement of your technique has to be perfect or you die comes from. Because if I can instill fear into you and make the kettlebell very enigmatic and mysterious, and even the 8 kg, you swing it and your low back explodes into 1,000 pieces if you don't know the solid technique, which only I can teach you for $10,000 a year. So jump in, right? You get where I'm coming from? So it only makes sense if I can say this is very dangerous, right? And now you have to do this. I know, I'm exaggerating, of course. But I come from the place where I have complete novices who never trained. And then I see, hey, the hinge looks solid, deadlift looks good, press looks good. Let's try some swings. And then, finishing my thought, and then please go on, Eric. We get some feedback from our clients who say, you know what, Gregory? It really felt bad in the back the next day. I was like, oh, that's tough. And I said, yeah, but you felt good during the workout. Yes, I felt awesome. But next day I was like, oh. And I'm like, okay, that's a signal from your body that we are a little bit too far. He didn't hurt himself. It just felt bad. Yeah. So we dialed it back a little bit. He feels awesome, so we dialed it up a little bit, right? So this is where I'm coming from. Nobody came in and said, I did the swing and now I broke my back.
That's a great transition to what I was going to say, because one of the most important lessons that I learned early on during my kettlebell training was that you can test your form with heavier weights, because you can totally fake good form, not fake good form. You can easily survive bad form with lightweight, but you're not going to be able to fool, you're talking about the 80 kg. At a certain point, like you said, the load goes over your capacity and you might injure yourself. But
can I share?
You have to be able to test yourself and what weight you can use. Sorry, Nikolai?
Yeah, from a gym standpoint, so I would like when you said something about the 6 kilos, Gregory. I mean, I totally I had so much trouble with Seattle Kettlebell Club kind of getting it going. Like, we spent a couple of years really trying to build our membership. And, our kettlebell started at 8 kilo and then moved up, of course, we had up to 48 kilos, I think. But, when our membership really took off is when I bought a bunch of 4 and 6 kilo aluminum kettlebells that were, the same dimensions as all the other kettlebells, but they're 4 and 6 kilos. That's when the membership took off, because honestly, the majority of people cannot handle, they can't handle even 8 kilos because they don't know what they're doing. And, this is from a gym owner standpoint, of course, for individuals, it's a little different, but if you're trying to train a lot of novices, and especially people in their 40s-ish, you really have to have light kettlebells. And I know they're more expensive than other kettlebells, but they can get it wrong and it doesn't hurt. They're not going to get injured, because injured people just don't come back. And if you're dealing with smaller frame people and ladies, I really credit the 4 and the 6 kilo kettlebells for boosting our business, doubling it in less than a year.
Oh, that's crazy. You're talking about your gym business or your sales of Pro Kettlebell?
Seattle, no, not sales. Seattle Kettlebell Club. Prior to Pro Kettlebell, I'm not even repping, my kettlebell.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not hard style though, because the 4 and 6 kilo hard style bells are so small they actually hurt, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Oh, I'm serious. It's
They're key. How do you call it? They're key attachments, or what's that in English? The key.
Yeah.
Key holders.
They have to
look
be
like key
full
holders, yeah.
size. They have to be full size, even if
Yeah.
they're not mine. Like if they're like Kettlebell Kings or Bells of Steel or whatever, they have to be full size because they spread the weight out better than the small cast iron ones. But I found that it was so much easier to convert people with those 4s and 6 kilos. It built confidence because many people are coming to kettlebells because it's their last resort. They've already been hurt in CrossFit or like a trainer that was just a little too over aggressive or something like that. They've been sitting on their butts for the last 20, 30 years, building their family and their business, and they're deconditioned. And so they come in and they're not like us. All right. They don't live in the gym. They are, I mean, they're weak as mud. All right. And so a 4 and a 6, when you start adding in momentum, right? The swing can 10x the weight of that kettlebell, the feel of it. And like if you're a gym owner, like, and you're not using those full size 4 and 6 kilos, you're leaving a lot on the table. I guarantee people are trying your free classes and they're not coming back because they got demoralized or they woke up so sore the next day. They're like, there's just no way I can do this. They're like, I'm not in good enough shape to start getting in shape.
It's one of the best training aspects is owning your own physical gym too with those bells, because a lot of time I think people who just train at home with their own kettlebells have trouble. They don't have all of these options, and they have like 1 or 2 kettlebells, and you can't start or progress with certain movements if you only have like one. Say like you're starting out with like a 20 kg, because they don't want to invest. I don't even know how much money a 4 or 6 kg bell is. You said they were expensive. I've never even seen them sold. But
they're like $120, $150. So it is a big investment, especially for a gym.
And then once you start using
10
that,
or 20 of them.
yeah, and once you start, you'll progress in like a couple of weeks. I assume your students who start with that are like, all right, now I'm ready for the 8 kg, and like soon enough they're using 12, 16, right? So
it is. It's an investment. But then if you look at the lifetime value of the customer, all right, if that customer is paying $150 a month for membership, well, those bells pay for themselves pretty quickly. And this is from a gym owner standpoint.
Yeah. Nikolai, I see your point. I agree and disagree a little bit. And here's how I see it. I totally see the value of not overexerting your clients and not being aggressive, like you said it. I think that's a great description, where people think like they slam them down with heavy weights and so, yeah, you got to get the feeling and you got to get the heavy weight is a great teacher. I say this all the time, but I also only say this to people who have already built some solid foundations first. And then I'm like, now I've taught you everything. Now let's pick up a heavier weight, which can be an even better teacher than I am, right? But here's the thing. We only have 8 kg. That's the least amount of weight that we have. Yes, we have dumbbells, 5 kg. And for some people, for pressing, we use dumbbells to go overhead. Yes. But my point, we always do double-handed stuff. And that's why, again, I'm so in love with the Pro Kettlebell, because it's so perfect for the thumb grip, how I call it. Thumb inside the window of the kettlebell, fingers on the bell, right? This type of grip. And it works like magic. And we have frail people. We have over 50s most of the time. And it works perfectly. I think where I disagree is on that point. If you have specialized in kettlebells and you have garnered lots of experience with your demographic, you can totally make it work with the 8 kg, because you totally understand how to program the exercises and the work to a point where even the complete novice can get started with the 8 kg. And even burpees, right? People hate burpees, the jumping around. I hated them too, but now I incorporate them so often because I'm so in love with that exercise. First of all, in my own practice and with our clients. And I've even devised a very simple, and probably somebody else has come up with this idea too, with a very simple, easy burpee. No jumping, no anything, just laying on the floor and standing back up, which I always say it's a basic skill. If you lay on the floor one day on a stomach, you have to be able to get up somehow, right? And so I believe you can totally make it work with an 8 kg, but it still makes sense to have some lighter weights. And in our case, it's just dumbbells. It's not a lighter kettlebell. But also, I believe a little bit of a heavyweight or the 8 kg gives the client, even the deconditioned one, the proper feedback so they understand what to do. And I never let a deconditioned individual press with one arm an 8 kg. Never, never. Because like you said, Nikolai, they can't even press an 8 kg. And that's not, I'm not saying this in a negative sense. This is just fact of the matter. It's the truth. But with both hands, it works. And even then, right, I think you know this too. You have clients, they do this, right? Bring your arms overhead. So this happens, right? It's like extend the elbows.
Yeah.
And they're dying, right? So with one of our clients, we just do this. Elbows extended, lift the shoulder blades up and down. This is the only thing that we do because that's enough of a stimulus to get these breaks off right here because they're almost dying because they can't move straight, bring their arms up. And I've recently received an article from Kim Goss. Kim Goss is a ghostwriter. He has written over 2,000 articles. He has been working with Charles Poliquin. He is on Simply Faster. He writes a lot of stuff. A very cool guy. I've actually asked him to jump on the podcast, but he wouldn't yet. Maybe one day he does. And he's always sending me articles, really good stuff that I read through. It's all highly informative. And then he has an interesting point about the press, how it's gotten lost in the art of exercising, where not a lot of people are pressing anymore. And that's what I love about the kettlebell as well, is I always tell people, when you work with kettlebells, you do lots and lots and lots of pressing, right? And this is where the beauty of it comes back in. But I totally see your point, Nikolai. I think it's two sides of the coins. I think, and we've talked about this the last time, Nikolai, your gym or your business takes off when your marketing is set. Then it takes off. It takes off like wildfire all the time.
Well, I love that you've developed, the I guess we just call them hacks or tricks or whatever, but with like 2-hand exercises,
Yeah.
2-hand presses and whatnot. Like that, my goal in life right now is really to help people develop their gyms and develop their client base, because that's how, like you said the other day, like kettlebells have been so niche for so long, and it's time for them to come out of like the dungeon and become mainstream.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
The dungeon.
And
yeah.
it's not just for Adonises like Eric Spector and Gregory. It's for every person,
it's
right? Like
everybody.
it's for my mother-in-law and my father-in-law that they're like, they've had bumps and bruises in their lives. They're close to 70 years old or whatever. And, it can really help them. And, yes, it's better if you start early, but you don't have to be a physical powerhouse like what you see on all the videos and whatnot to get started. It's just like, you can't start everybody with a 16 kg or a 24 kg.
One of the most shared videos that I receive is the commercial that I'm sure you've both seen of that grandfather who wants to be able to lift his granddaughter, grandson. And I get I don't know if it's a Christmas video, but I get it a lot. People send it to me a lot. Like
it is a Christmas video. Yeah, it is.
Every holiday, right?
Every Christmas.
Like you're talking about marketing, Gregory and Nikolai, the fact that like it's really important for people as they age. People who just atrophied because they haven't trained a lot. I think that commercial really sums it up. So
yeah,
people who are listening who haven't seen it, I don't even know what you search in, but Christmas kettlebell.
Yeah, just a kettlebell grandpa, something, and you feel and you see it. I reacted to it and I cried. It's such a beautiful.
I got teary-eyed when I first saw it. I was like,
yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so because it reminds me of my dad. It's just wow. And hey, by the way, Nikolai, when I order your when I get the order from you. From the Pro Kettlebell, please, you can add it on the invoice too, but please add me one of those hoodies.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to give you one for free.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah. I might even, because you know what? My wife makes them. I might even be able to put a little Leb Stark on there or
hey, if you can put,
something.
if you do this, please, and like I'll pay for this, but if you do this, it's one for me with Gregory and then one for Angie with Angie.
I will do that.
Please do. Oh,
If you
awesome.
just want a simple name, great. If you want me to put the LS on there, send me that logo, and I can have it,
Yeah, it's just
print
the
it out.
name, just the name. With the LS thing,
Okay.
we're gonna have a collaboration with the kettlebell. Then it's this is gonna be next level. But just with the hoodie, I just want, because I represent your brand with my name on it. That's totally fine. I want that.
Oh man, I
Are
love
you
it.
getting,
I love that hoodie.
Gregory, are you getting all of his kettlebells in your gym?
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah,
Yeah,
Wait, what happened to
we got a
yours?
pallet ready to ship to Switzerland.
yeah. Can't wait.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Are,
What
are you
happened to mine?
are you sunsetting your kettlebells or?
Oh no, they're still here, and we have, the idea with Nikolai. I told him, because we had this conversation a couple of days ago, and I told him I truly believe I'm fully sold on the Pro Kettlebell,
Yeah.
because it's not just the arm pockets. I mean, the arm pockets is just so beautiful for beginners to get started, right? Because the bumps on the forearm, like everybody, so that's one thing. And what I also like, Nikolai, you know this for sure, but it's so fascinating to know. When you clean it up the wrong way, it actually bumps, and then it's like, oh, see, that's not where it's supposed to land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love this, right? You have to, right, feedback. And the handle's thinner. So I've gotten used to the thinner handle, but what really even adds the next layer is this beautiful metal finish of the handle that is softer on your hands, and it's just a grip. It just, there's something grippy about it that I totally enjoy. And when I train, I even think about it. I'm like, man, I gotta get my 28s. I gotta get my 32s, because I only want to pick up the 24 from Nikolai that he sent me. And so yeah, I'm not restocking. I have our own kettlebell still in the gym, but we have a full set now coming in with Pro Kettlebell, and mine will be then the discounted version, like the, just still hollow car, still a very cool kettlebell, still awesome, but Pro Kettlebell is then the Rolls Royce. It's like the premium brand, right? And
I
so
have a video of how we do the handles, and this is part of why the price point's a little bit higher. All the handles are like hand done, and it takes time. I gotta, I had to show them how to do it, but
Wow.
like you have to hand sand the inside of the window, right, and get it nice and smooth, and then you do the top of the handle, but then you leave that kind of, we call it the racing stripe on the sides, which is texture, so you don't really need chalk.
yeah, I feel
If you
that.
use chalk, it actually holds that chalk really well.
Wow.
We're I can't say I'm the only person who doesn't, clear coat their handles, because I know Vulcan is doing that too. But there's most companies clear coat it because it prevents the rust in the transportation. But
Yeah.
you have to take it off, which is like, I don't know if you've ever had to take it off, but it's kind of a pain. And then you wind up with like perfectly smooth handles, which, is fine. I was used to it, but now I'm kind of spoiled. Like you said,
Yeah,
it's the Rolls Royce. It's not perfect.
exactly.
It's not 100% necessary, but when you can have the best, why
Yeah,
not?
go ahead. And hey, today I was reading an article from Barbend, and they were essentially comparing kettlebells. Which one's the best kettlebell? And they
Oh
were
yeah.
comparing different cast irons and different competitions. And I was unconsciously expecting the Pro Kettlebell to sit somewhere there. So it hasn't permeated the market that far yet, but we're gonna make sure
I
it
want to say
does.
they recycled that article, because I saw that article too,
Uh-huh.
and the stuff that they put on that article was like pretty old,
Okay. Hmm.
and I sort of know how those articles work. It's kind of a pay to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Of
Your
course.
your
Of
publicist has
course.
to submit, and it's
Yeah.
like they get a percentage of the sales for recommending and all that
Of
stuff.
course.
We don't have the funds to do. I don't have a publicist. I don't have like the money to say, okay, you're going to get 20% of all these sales if you review my product or whatever. We're just word of mouth,
Yeah.
people use
Grassroots.
it.
That's why I love it so much.
Grassroots. I
That's
spend
what's
all my
up.
money on the production, having it made in the USA, and it all goes to the people making them. And you know,
And people respect that. That's another layer on top of it. I'm not American. I don't live in the U.S., but this is another aspect. Like, yo, we keep it in house. that's like, you know, not everybody says that, or not everybody can can put the stamp "Made in USA" or even in our case "Made in Switzerland" on their modules, especially materialistic stuff. For most of it is done in China. Of course, in China, I mean, the Chinese product is also good. I'm not saying lots of people that's bad product. No, it's my kettlebell that I have, the hollow core. It's totally fine. It's awesome. And I would assume that if you would outsource it to the Chinese, you would still get a great product, right? With more quality control and everything, and probably the danger of losing your patent. I mean, you talked about this, right? But the fact of the matter is that you keep it in-house because you have this great idea. You know what happened to Valery Fedorenko, right? You know what happened to these guys. You know what happened to, who was it? Who was it? American Kettlebells? The guy who came up with the hollow core idea? Who was it?
Kettlebells USA
Kettlebells USA. And don't tell me that this guy is not experiencing severe depression because he lost his patent and now all the big kettlebell manufacturers are jumping on the hollow core concept. Come on, you can't tell me this. It's just like the guy, do you know the story? There was a guy who was designing the smiley, the yellow face with the two dots and the circle. This guy designed it for a newspaper, and he didn't patent it. The guy died as broke as a church mouse. Think about this. How crazy is this, right? Everybody's using these crappy smileys, but he didn't patent it. I mean, maybe he didn't think about it, right? That was the same conversation that I had with John Duquesne. I told John, I said, hey, when you came up with these cast iron kettlebells, you didn't want to make a patent? And he said, well, we didn't expect that boom. Like, okay, yeah.
I don't want anyone to think like I'm xenophobic or anything like that, or I'm anti, free trade. It's just, there's a couple things. I'm very controlling, and I need to have my hands on everything. Like, I need to be able to inspect what's happening. And then I have kids, right? And so I follow what's happening in our economy, and right now our GDP is way down, and we've outsourced everything and we're living off debt. And it's just, I tend to think long term as far as what's happening. And I just think if I can make a little difference by having our product made in the USA, then I'm willing to kind of sacrifice short-term profit for long-term success for my kids and my kids' kids. And then there's just the pride of it. Like, I'm sure you have pride in Swiss watches, and even though I can't afford one, I got a Casio, but
you guys can swap pro kettlebells for Swiss watches.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm sure you guys do that very well, and I'm proud of USA manufacturing, and I grew up in the 80s, and that's probably, I was a little bit, I was brought up with that being a big thing, and so there's probably some of that in there too. I'm not against, I've actually looked into European manufacturing for European countries, right? There's a foundry in the UK I've looked at. There's one in Ukraine that I've looked at. And that would be great for the EU, but for the US market, I think it should be made domestically, saves on fuel, provides good jobs and quality. I can keep an eye on it.
100%. 100%. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, Nikolai, we should talk about manufacturing if you want to have a private or public conversation about it. I have an apparel brand, and getting clothes made in the U.S. Strictly in the U.S. is so difficult, and I think that a lot of people, it's a lost art form. And I don't know about metallurgy and forges. And that might be more common in the U.S. than a lot of.
It's becoming a lost art, Eric.
The apparel trade is just, I don't know, it's forgotten. No one knows. There's one. I know Origin is getting really big now too, with Jocko and everything. But there's only a couple of factories that know how to design and manufacture clothing, and So, eventually I want to make it all US, but now it's only like, partial. So anyway, I commend you
Can
for
I
that.
make a suggestion, Eric?
Yeah.
And listen, I've had very I have dark days. I've had dark days about manufacturing in the US because it is very challenging. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it is doable, but you have to be a problem solver. But one, and I've been thinking about this myself, an untapped resource in the United States, people who make quality product that don't mind doing manual labor, the Amish.
Oh,
I
yeah.
swear,
Wow.
I swear to you,
For
the
real?
Amish, yeah, they don't use technology like well, they're starting to use a little bit of technology, but like they pretty much do everything by hand. But you will find no higher quality garments or wood manufactured items or cheese or anything than the Amish. Man, they take such pride in everything they do.
I wish they were
And they
local. None of them live in the desert. I'm in Phoenix. I have to go back east to visit some Amish garment
go check
factories, I think.
go check out like Indiana or Pennsylvania or something like that. And oh man, and this is totally off topic, but I've driven through Amish country a couple of times. I am so enamored with their lifestyle and the way that they're like disconnected from the internet and the social media and stuff like that. Their children are so happy and healthy. They're like riding horses like through town or on these buggies. And I think they've been stigmatized in the past by for what reason I don't know. But if you just look at the 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 community and support that they provide one another, there's really they have something there. And I I'm probably getting old. Like I'm just like
No,
when
but
You're
I
just
it's
like,
the
see
God, I
truth,
just want
man.
farmland. I just want to retire and like hang out with the.
It's the truth, man, Nikolai. You're
yeah,
sharing the truth.
I want to yeah,
100%, man. Keep going, keep
I want
going.
to have conversations like this with people, and like this is different, right? This is not social media. This is like an actual conversation. But like the whole thing on social media is like it's it's very damaging, I think, to our youth, and
Mhm.
I'm seeing the moral decay in certain areas. And I guess it has me looking towards the complete opposite side of the spectrum. And
And
Yeah,
my,
but
you
you
know,
got you
and
have to
got
progress too. You can't just stagnate and stay. Like it's a double-sided coin. You have to make technological progress if you want advancement in human society. But then I think it's important to have the Amish and Mennonites and these groups of people who are reminders of what's important, because then you can clarify, the good and the bad of social media, right? Like the fact that we can have this conversation over Zoom right now
yeah,
across the world
agree.
is beautiful, and that wouldn't have happened without the bad. So, like
100%.
so it's
Agree. But I have a question for you guys. Don't you think, I mean, like you said, Eric, you're 31, right? So you are a what, 90s? 90s, right?
yeah. I was born in 1992.
1992. So I'm 84, and what's your birth year, Nikolai?
79.
79. All right. So I consider myself still an 80s kid, right? So I totally Terminator, Alien, Jurassic Park, all that stuff. I mean, that happened in the 90s, but I was old enough to then. I was even so scared of Jurassic Park. I remember this when the T-Rex was chopping the guy who was sitting on the toilet. I looked away because I was so scared. I remember this. Wow. But here's my question. And I've been thinking about this philosophically for lots of time now, and bolstered by reading the Bible and reading Bruce Lee's work, I'm kind of getting this philosophical vibe where I'm asking myself, we talked about, right? You said this, Nikolai, you said the moral decay, or just we see it happening with the next generation. And while I agree, here's my question. Isn't it always that the older generation considers the younger generation to be at a disadvantage because they come up with new things? I remember in our case, it was breakdancing. And the older folks be like, you guys are, this is the decay of the youth. They jumping around, they're spinning on their heads, they're spitting their brains out. So what is it, right? Is it truly a decline where you can, because I have seen this video from Ray Dalio. I don't know if you've seen this, and I gotta read his book. You got, I think it's something has to do with the history of the nations. This guy and his team, Ray Dalio's a billionaire, and the guy studied like history back to the fourth century, like really, really back in time. And he always sees this up and down, this decline, this rise and fall of all of the empires. And you can look at that the United States currently is at a steep decline, because all the markers tend to gravitate towards that the next power, the superpower, is coming, and it's not going to be the United States if things don't turn around. Like, very interesting. And the reason why I mentioned this is that's my question that I want you guys to answer. Is it fact of the matter that the next generation seems to be at a disadvantage? Or is it the older generation always having issues with the next generation?
I think this is a cycle that happens throughout. Is that, and there's a saying for it, right? Strong men create good times create weak men.
Hard times.
Weak men create hard times create strong men.
Yeah.
And I believe we're seeing that, and it doesn't happen in one generation. It happens in like 10 generations, and we are seeing a decline. But I will say this, and I heard this said the other day, and I think it gives me some hope and some optimism, is that, oh boy, I could get in trouble for this one. I'll fucking say it.
Gregory loves you
traditional,
for that.
It's a place of truth.
traditional family values, those folks are still having kids at a, 2-3 kids per family rate, which is either keeping up or increasing the population. Whereas folks without traditional family values are opting out of having kids, and eventually things will kind of, the door will swing back the other way slightly, and kind of self-correct a little bit. And I do believe you can go too far one direction or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it with kids in schools, the lack of motivation to do anything, the lack of motivation just to get a driver's license, because the internet is so easy and accessible. Not wanting to leave the house. I mean, what percentage of kids have early stage diabetes? Like, that's not normal. It's not acceptable. And you've seen it with adults too. And so there are some problems. I wouldn't say it's just us boomers saying, oh, and there's some of that. There's definitely some of that. Like, I used to walk to school uphill in the snow both ways. There's some of that, but there's some issues that need to be addressed. And
well, I mean, when you're talking about technological progress, I think most of human history before like 250 years ago was pretty flat. Like, the world was not connected to itself. Mm-hmm. After the Industrial Revolution, that's when things really started picking up, and we became a global society. Like, the idea of a society is new too. People were just nomadic tribes for most of human history. And I don't think we've ever been at this specific point in history with technology where we're so interconnected, when our dopamine receptors are so filled with, because of the internet. Mm-hmm. And there are some new things that I don't think have been tested by time. And as part of the younger generation, I'm also concerned about that, just because I know how new it is. Even though every generation, in the past 250, 300 years has seen some new stuff that the previous generation is scared of because it's new, I don't think that it has impacted the youth of those times as harshly as the internet social media is today. And you're talking about motivation, Nicola. I've seen it in myself. I'm like, I've just been sitting on my phone for like an hour. What the hell? How has time passed?
Hey,
and you're no longer bored. And I think boredom is really important for people.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just have a question for you guys. What is your screen time?
Oh,
I don't know. I'm afraid to look. Let me look.
I always want to compare my screen time with other folks.
I don't know how to check, but I will say that I'm probably like I would definitely be embarrassed by how much time I spent on the screen. Um,
Oh, see,
I
yeah,
I use my phone for work, and here's the thing: I grew up. I remember rotary phones, black and white televisions, and like things from the olden days, right? My kids say
yeah,
the olden days,
yeah. The
and
olden days.
I don't think that my brain or like I don't think that I'm adapted correctly for all this technology because
Yeah,
I
we're
have
not.
I have a slightly addictive personality already. That's why I don't
Mm,
drink. Quit
Mm,
drinking, 14 years ago.
mm.
And the like you said, the
yeah.
dopamine hits from like
It's
scrolling
crazy.
and
It's crazy.
information,
Yeah.
it gets me. And I have an obsessive personality and
You
I
notice
can
it
get
though.
caught on the phone and it's almost like it feels like a drug. It
Mm.
is
But good
Yeah.
point, Eric. You notice it. That's a good point. If you notice that you
Yeah,
have
you
this type
notice
of
it then. But
disorders,
if you
yeah,
grow up with it, you don't necessarily, it's just who you, it's part of your environment and that's just what life
exactly.
is.
You think it's
But
normal. You think it's
you
part
grew
of
up
your,
without
yeah.
it. And I think that helped, you know?
So what's your time, Eric?
I just checked. Weekly report.
Yeah, weekly. What
I'm
is
kind
it
of embarrassed to
average?
say this. Listen, if you're listening, for the listeners who are listening to this right now, a lot of my job is online, all right? It's 5.5 hours daily average screen time.
Okay, minus 2.5. What is
Two
most
and a half. Wait,
used?
how are you only at 2.5? Is it because you're like on YouTube and stuff and like most of my business is on Instagram?
Check this out. Check this out. YouTube is 2 hours and 36 minutes, but that's watching. That's not the content creation. See how I'm messed up too. And number
Oh
one,
no,
look
I'm
at number
saying,
one. Look at number one. And I hate to see this. I hate to see
wait,
this app on number
how
one.
does that add up to 2.5 hours though?
Average over the whole week.
Oh,
So I've
that's oh, I
used,
see.
right? That's the average over the whole week. So 2.5 hours, and Instagram sits at the top with 3.5 hours and 26 minutes. And funny thing, I tell you guys, I have dedicated my senses towards avoiding the app as much as possible. So I go in and I go out. Same with TikTok. I go in, I post the content, and I'm gone. And then mindlessly, I sit on the toilet and pull that thing up. Mindlessly in the morning, automatically, I grab the thing and pull the thing up. Mindlessly at lunch, I check. And so I'm really fighting this urge to get this stupid dopamine kicks because at the end of the day, I'm just putting into perspective how much did I learn from reading these last 5 books in the last 5, 6 months or 4 months. I've learned a tonnage. And when I'm always quoting Bruce Lee now because it's so fresh and stuck into my mind. And I feel how this is elevating my game, not just business-wise, but also philosophical-wise. It adds to my certification process with kettlebells. It adds to the way I want to teach with kettlebells. It adds to my confidence of kettlebells when people are like, yeah, but Pavel says different. I don't care about this. I don't care about Pavel. I don't care about Valery Fedorenko. I respect these people, but I don't care about it. I go my own path. Why? They decided to go their own path. I'm going to go my own path too. What you want to do? And here's what Bruce Lee said. I love this. He said, people feel more comfortable imitating than innovating. And that is the truth. I feel more comfortable following you, Eric, if you have a following of 5 million people and you have a certification process where thousands of trainers go through, and these are your ideas and maybe your buddies, you came up with these ideas. And now I feel comfortable. Why? Because it hit critical mass. But now here I come, the young dude from over here, from the corner of Switzerland, who comes up with new ideas. And now everybody be telling me, oh, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Flowing Dutchman. Do you know the guy, the Flowing Dutchman?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Mace guy? Right?
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him too, and he's a very cool guy. Very cool guy. And on the podcast, he told me the following. He said, and I can so identify with his statement. He said, Gregory, when I started educating myself with the mace, I saw different philosophies, just like kettlebells. I think it's everywhere. Different tribes, different mentalities, right? Different ideas. This is how you're supposed to swing. This is how you're supposed to handle it. So he said, I was very unsure and I wasn't confident. But now that I've reached the top of the pyramid, I now feel confident by sharing my own ideas. and I feel exactly the same, right? And so, harking back to the social media idea, books give me so much. You've mentioned the Amish, right, Nikolai? The first thing that pops into my mind, I'm currently reading the book from Joseph Campbell. It's called The Hero's Journey. And I've ordered another book from Joe Campbell. Even though I have to say, Nikolai, some of the hair stood up on my neck because he's very anti-Christian. Some of the stuff that he says, I was like, I'm not going to continue reading this book. This really gets me. But I've learned, push through. This guy goes against what you believe, doesn't matter. Lots of people say he's a cool guy. Lots of people attribute lots of knowledge to this guy. So keep reading and then do it like Bruce Lee does it. Use what is useful, discard what is not, right? And there's this one story that he shared about how the Indians came up. The Indians from from the United States, right? Who were pushed in the reservate. What's this? The portion that they live in now? The reserves. How do you call it in English?
Reservation?
Reservation, right? Into reservations, right? But before they were the tribes, roaming through the United States. Yeah. And then he shared a very interesting parable about the bison, how the Indians were one with the bison, and they kind of like worshipped the bison because the bison gave their families food and life. And so he says, life thrives upon life. And I have a hard time, I understand its nature, it's the truth, but I have a hard time grasping this, right? Killing animals, even though, I eat meat, but I'm such a animal loving guy that I have huge issues when Joe Rogan posts stuff about metal is nature, and then you see a wolf eating a rabbit while the rabbit is still alive, and I'm dying inside. I'm like, I can't see this, right? But they share the story with the bison. And then he said, this is how the Indians were one with the animal. But then here comes industrialization. And what do? They kill the bison too, but they kill it in name of progress to make the trains rolling through the deserts and everything. So at the end, they massacre the animals. So they have they kill too, but in a very different relationship, right? So at the end of the day, I get more out of reading books than out of these stupid apps. But still, I find myself spending way too much time on these. And my question for you would be, Eric, 5.5 hours. Are you conducting so much business online on Instagram? Were you answering requests and stuff?
So yeah, I try to get back to like everyone. So a lot of it's answering messages. I was, as you were talking, I went through the actual breakdown, and an hour per day is actually on Waze on the what's it called? The driving app. So it's just like on my the screen time isn't necessarily, I'm not looking at the screen, but it's like my Google Maps. But yeah, in terms of like Instagram usage, a lot of it is getting back to people. Because I said before, I don't post that much, a lot of times but I do want people to feel like, when they reach out and they ask me questions about my training, then I can, go back and answer them. So, and they're not even paying clients. It's just, people who follow me. So, but I agree with you in terms of value that you get. I think, rarely do I think about a 30-second video that I may have seen on Instagram or even YouTube. I mean, sometimes the longer time commitment and the more energy you put into something, the more likely you're going to remember it and think about it. And I think about books that I've read way more than I think about videos I've seen online,
100%.
And a lot of that too, I think, is the intention behind the art. When you're making a YouTube video, you have to put a lot more brain power into what you're producing. And therefore, I think the end product is a lot higher quality. And I think even more so is true with books. Like how much more meaningful are the words on the page of a book than, not to say that, like this podcast, and not to say it's not bad, but like we're just sort of riffing right now. But if you're writing a book, it could take you months, years, sometimes even decades to produce that thing. And it's a distillation and a culmination of so much knowledge that people can use and understand. And that's why they survive the test of time. I don't know if a lot of the content online is really going to withstand, even though it might live on servers. A lot of it's short form. It's not intended to be consumed, 3-5 years in the future. But if, you're talking about the Bible too, I don't know when the first Bible was actually written. I know Judaism is over 5,000 years old, but like, when there's so much wisdom in something, it will stand the test of time because of and there's a large a market for it too. Like a lot of these ideas are relevant to so many groups of people because there's so much truth in them too. And I guess, our job is to make the kettlebell apply to more people's lives, and hopefully some of this content will live on through their lives. So, how do we get into this conversation though?
We're just bouncing back and forth.
I'm trying to go back to like where.
And I like that. This is when free flow of conversation. Like I said, it's a place of truth. Just like Shannon Sharp told Cat Williams, or Cat Williams said this. I like that this is a place of truth. So I'm gonna share everything. And hey, just for fun, did you see that Joe Rogan's podcast is back on YouTube?
Oh yeah,
yes.
He shared the full. Hey, and check out this deal. How powerful is that? And I want to know where this comes from. Now, you have to imagine it was 200 million quids, right? Or $200 million that Spotify paid Joe Rogan to be exclusive on Spotify. That's the number that circled around. Yeah. And that's like 2 or 3 years ago when he said, "Hey, now it's gonna be on Spotify exclusively," blah 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 blah. But he was still doing the bits and stuff on his JRE, right? The clips. So they paid him $200 million. And so like 4 years later or 3 years later, it's like, now I'm back on Apple. I'm back on YouTube again. So my question is, was it like a contract issue where they said, we're going to keep you for 3 years and then you can do whatever you want, and now you're free to do whatever you want again? Or they couldn't continue the contract or whatever?
The contract expired.
Right? So, hey, I get 200 mil to stay on your platform for a couple of years. Who cares about that YouTube money? Because when I'm back on it, I can get that money back from YouTube like in no time. This is such a power move, man. But I'm digressing. So he had Cat Williams on, and I didn't saw the full conversation, even though I watched the full conversation from Shannon Sharp. Did you see this, guys?
Yeah, like a few months ago.
Wow. Hey, Nikolai, we're talking about screen time. If your kids are asleep at night and you have 3.5 hours to spare, I know that's very rare, but but listen to this powerful conversation from Cat Williams with Shannon Sharp. And you know what's crazy? I just heard a couple of numbers. Shannon Sharp made 60 million views, 60 million off of the conversation with Cat Williams. This one video got 60 million views. And then Shannon did like 30 or 40 small pieces of content, which each of them got 1 million on their own. So this one piece of content generated about 100 million views, right? This was so impactful. And so Joe Rogan had him on. And then Cat, I don't know what's up with Cat, but he was like, I'm looking at the Baphomet. I know exactly what's up with the Baphomet because I don't know where they come from, right? The Baphomet, you know the guy with the horns, right? Where everybody prays to?
Lucifer or whatever.
Lucifer, exactly. And he said, I knew well in advance that, one day they're going to use the transgenderism. It's going to be part of the future. And I knew that one day they're calling people the goat. And you can ask yourself why they call people the goat.
Like Nikolai, you were talking about the degradation of society, and I think one of the great inventions of Western society was the Greeks ended sophistry, right? And they actually developed courts where they would listen to facts and logic and reason instead of just the loudest, most influential speaker.
Right.
I think the double-sided coin, the negative side of social media and YouTube is the fact that comedians are becoming the people that we look up to for ideas and for their wisdom. I think comedians have a lot of wisdom. I want to be clear. They travel the country, they travel the world, and they speak to a lot of people. And only the ideas that work, that resonate with people, are the ones that get into their specials. And so they understand, like, they have to filter out a lot of bad ideas to get to the good ones. Unfortunately, they get really good over the years at just talking. And I don't know if they actually know what they're talking about. And I think with Cat, I listened to that episode of Joe Rogan for like 10 or 20 minutes. And I was like, I'm not getting any like wisdom out of this. And he's just like talking about that aliens. I don't want to misquote him. I don't know if he said aliens made the pyramids He was talking about like how slaves didn't, or I don't know. But I was like, I don't know what I'm getting out of this. He's just riffing about, but people are listening to him because he's a really popular public figure on this massive platform, and it's so weird that that's what all of our collective minds are focused on now is what Cat Williams thinks of who built the pyramids, and it's like, why are we using technology like this? But if it entertains, I guess that's what makes it worth it. If people are listening to these episodes because they just want to chill, they had like a hard day at work, like I'm gonna put on Joe Rogan, I want to listen to what the conspiracy. That's how it started out, by the way. This is podcast. It wasn't all about,
Yeah.
over like 5-10 years, you started getting all these massive political public commentator figures on. But originally, this is what it was, just comedians talking shit,
Having a good time,
and
right?
riffing.
Yeah.
And now it's back to that, but in such a different state because now 2/3 of the country listen to it.
And I mean the episode with Elon Musk,
Yeah,
where the
and
guy
I like that.
where
I
the
think
guy
that's
smokes a
good.
joint, where he's like, "Oh, yeah, okay," like what? This is gonna be memed forever, right?
You
And
should,
we,
I do love a good
I just think that
conspiracy theory.
people, sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, most definitely.
People just need to have an educated background and then go into this with like humor, with a humorous intent. They shouldn't rely on this for their news or for their understanding of reality. It's just pure entertainment, and then sometimes you get nuggets of wisdom, but you have to be able to parse that. And the ability to parse comes from reading books and from
Exactly. From
things that have
wisdom.
stood the test of time. Yeah, you need to have this basic foundation instead of just listening to people who are commentating on things that they themselves have heard
Yeah.
from other people. I don't know.
Discernment. I would call it discernment, right?
Yes,
Understanding
yeah.
that you can discern. It doesn't even have to be fact from truth, but when Cat Williams gets into the pyramids and the aliens, and I mean Joe Rogan is a big alien fan, and they get all into that stuff, which it's entertaining to a certain extent. And like I said, you catch these nuggets of wisdom, like the goat with Baphomet, right? And we all know to a certain extent how the devil used to be the guy in heaven who was responsible for music, right? So the devil is in music. I mean, when you look at, I don't know where you stand when it comes to your faith, Eric, but I'm a Christian, and I do believe there's heaven and hell, and I do believe there is God. I do believe Jesus walked the earth. There's also lots of evidence. Lots of historians agree on the fact that a man named Jesus walked the planet of the earth and was doing these miracles. And funny thing is, even historians who are atheists, who didn't believe in Jesus, didn't believe in Christianity, they all like, that's a fact. That Jesus existed, that's a fact. Very interesting stuff. But when you look at that the devil used to be responsible for music, and you look at the outpour, especially nowadays when you look at the music industry, how crazy it is, and especially the entertainment industry, I do see that there is this downpour of, I call this output of music, especially music, as you know, how
There's
it goes into your brain. A lot of symbolism, right? Which at the end of the day, I also think it's kind of like a marketing, right? Lots of people believe that stuff. So hey, if we put this into our music video, lots of people are gonna talk about it, Illuminati and stuff. So it gains views. So I get this, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes you get these nuggets of wisdom where I'm like, he makes you think. It's like, it makes you think. That's what a comedian is supposed to do. Like, it makes you laugh, but also on a serious note, even if you don't laugh, he makes you think. That's what happened with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is very solid, and I think these guys are, especially the ones who are at the top, these are highly intelligent folks.
They have
you have to be. You have to be.
But just because one thing that they said is true doesn't mean that anything else that they say is true.
Agree.
And that's where discernment comes in. But unfortunately, in human psychology, if we view someone as correct, we apply, I don't know what the psychological bias is called for this, but based off of, like, you guys have obviously a lot of wisdom with kettlebell training. And right now we're talking about philosophy and society. That doesn't mean that what we're saying is correct. Just because, we have expertise in one field doesn't mean we have expertise in another. However, having said that, I do think that people who have a certain level of understanding about certain things, generally that means that they can understand things at a base level, and so they can apply their intellect to other. So I don't know. Anyway, nuance is important. And again, I'm trying to figure out how the hell we got into this conversation. I hope people are still listening. We're like 2
Yeah,
hours.
I enjoy this. I enjoy this. I told you guys, it's not just about kettlebells. I mean, hey, and you know, when you vibe with folks, you jump into different conversations. And I really enjoy this.
I
I don't
was
know how you guys are
I
doing.
was telling my wife before this, I was like, I don't know what we're going to talk about because we didn't have like a plan. We just sort of riff. But next time you want to do this, if you want to have like a specific topic and we can really delve into the details and down, if you just want to, and we can do some our own individual research and just bring different perspectives on like a single or multiple kettlebell topics. I don't know. I mean, obviously this is your platform, but whatever. I'm down for how you want to do it next time. I know you want to. Next time we'll have like a bigger group too.
The cool thing about the
Hopefully.
big group is that, you know, yeah, hopefully. If you're listening, Emilio and Pat, hopefully, did you catch this?
Yeah, for the listeners, we had in the background, like coming up, leading up to this, we had like what was it, 5 or 6
Yeah,
participants?
and Yanni Kokozaki from Lebanon, yeah.
Yeah.
We were like 6, right? And boils down to 3. But we're gonna invite everybody back on. And just Nikolai, you got to say something because I have the gift of gab. I can't stop talking. And sometimes people will like, but funny thing, this is what they always critique me for. Like Gregory's asking the wrong questions. He's talking way too much. So I'm thinking like, okay, I gotta improve. But then I heard Russell Brand, who's very eloquent in his speech. The guy speaks perfect English. When I hear him speak, I always think about, wow, this is how I want to express myself with really solid. Not that I'm saying everything he says is true, again, like you're alluding to, Eric, but the way he speaks and his mannerism is something that I want to learn from because he has eloquent language. And he says the same. It's like, it seems like I'm asking the wrong questions, right? So I think everybody gets this who has a platform who talks to people. It's like, you asking this, asking that. You had Valery Fedorenko on, and you talk way too much. I'm like, yeah. But the essence of what I'm trying to say is I love having conversations, right? I've talked so much kettlebells on this podcast, and while it is still the main topic and kettlebell folks that come together, I mean, we're not robots, right? So we have other opinions about other stuff. And yes, we're not experts on philosophy, but I'm reading Plato. Interesting. The Republic. I listened to it on the audiobook from Socrates. It's like, how did this guy even come up with this idea? When you listen to the audiobook of the Republic, how did this guy even grasp these many ideas? He starts at the bottom and then takes it into this huge tangent where he speaks like for hours.
Because he wasn't distracted by Instagram Reels and he could think about this stuff.
Exactly. But go on, Nikolai. Hey, say something, man. I'm talking way too much.
Hey, I love to hear you guys talk. I mean, sometimes when given the platform, I can take up too much time and I can kind of go off on a tangent. I will just share, and I think I can talk about kettlebells all day long, but I love to talk about life and society and books. One thing I like about you, Gregory, is that you're always reading, and you kind of I grabbed one of the books that you had talked about the other day, and I was listening to it as a marketing book. But you know, we were talking about society, and my wife and I started watching Ted Lasso. You guys seen Ted Lasso?
That's such a good show. I love it.
Yeah. And so we're kind of in the first season of it. And this is after the episode we watched was everybody hooked up with each other. Ted Lasso had a one night stand. Like everybody had one night stands that night. And then Ted Lasso was like, he had this moral dilemma. And he was asking the other coaches, like, is this okay? And one of the guys goes, well, what, did you have a good time? And he's like, well, yeah. And then the guy asks, well, did she have a good time? And he's like, yeah. And it was just left at that, like, okay, well, since you guys both had a good time that night, then everything's good. And that's the moral of the story. And I do remember growing up in a time when television programs had morals of the story, but it wasn't that hooking up and having a one night stand was okay and it was the thing to do. And I brought that up with my wife. And listen, I did not wait until I got married to, do that or whatever. But in hindsight, I think I should have. I think I wasted a lot of time and a lot of
Totally
energy.
agree.
And I think there's wisdom
Totally
in
agree.
holding off until you're married to do that. And I'll probably get a lot of flack about that. But I do believe that television and social media, everybody's trying to one up one another. And like, and people learn and they figure out like everybody wants to watch a train wreck, right?
Yes.
And uh, but the thing is, people usually watch when they're half asleep. They're not really watching with a critical eye, and so they get this feeling like, okay, Ted Lasso, who's a fictional character, you know, went and had a one night stand with this lady, and they both had a good time, so that's okay. And they don't really talk about the empty feeling that happens afterwards, or the awkwardness, or like the other issues that come from that, the wasted energy, the unplanned pregnancy, or the sexually transmitted disease. They don't talk about any of that stuff. And I just remember like shows being a little bit more like the levels at which we would go. And of course they don't like use foul language. Well, they do on cable. They use foul language on cable, but like the levels at which they will uh stoop in order to get people to watch a show and be interested and engaged has really gone down very deep. And listen, maybe because well, maybe we're not talking about kettlebells here, but maybe because we have a platform and we have a lot of people like sort of following us and looking up to us in a way, maybe this is what I've been led to maybe sneak in these little nuggets of wisdom to younger people that might be watching. Like, you know what? It's not freaking cool to go get hammered drunk and then find a rando and waste your time, messing around with someone that you have no future with. And I just think I hope we're I want to do I do feel guided by God, and I'm with Gregory on that. And I I don't have. There was a time when I had Seattle Kettlebell Club, and I felt like I had to hide my religion because a lot of my clients just didn't agree or whatever. And I am embarrassed that I did that, and I'm not embarrassed about that anymore. Um, and I think COVID did something to change my mind about that whole thing. I realized that the majority of people are not always correct about things. And when you get a large group of people thinking together, the collective IQ actually shrinks. And I I do feel like technology does have its benefits, and we are blessed that we have a platform here, and we can share our opinion. And people can debate me and say he's an idiot, whatever, and explain their reasons why they don't agree with what I think, and that's great, and that's why this is a good platform. Um, but I think since we're on this topic, I do see a lot of symbolism. I see a lot of people going down a path that is very short-sighted. They want instant gratification. They cannot maintain one thought for a very long period of time. They don't want to put in the hard work to get something. And so they'll stoop to levels of self-degradation, embarrassing themselves in order to get a lot of likes, or embarrassing someone else and doing things that maybe are morally not good. And and that's my take on things right now. And of course, I think the majority of people are good and they're not going that way. But I do feel like the majority of stuff that we're seeing online these days is gosh, it's embarrassing the stuff that I see on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, like especially ladies, what they're doing to get attention and get likes and followers.
Yeah, there's you're talking about Christianity and your business. I've noticed there's a correlation now with just fitness and conservative values, which is very interesting. I wonder over time if there will just be like a permanent split. But I know, with CrossFit specifically a couple of years back, um there was a lot of discussion about how, all these it was like a Christian organization and they had a split. Was it because of the BLM stuff. Do you guys remember when all that, like the CEO made some remarks? I don't know if
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
was it an
And then
anti-gay
I can't
thing or
remember.
he
he
was
left?
fired. He was fired, or he
Rick, are you
left.
talking about Glassman?
Glassman. Yeah, yeah.
Glassman, yeah. Was that
Well, I can't
because
remember what he said.
I don't know. I think he
Hey,
had a
hey, Jamie,
conservative.
pull that up.
Yeah, you need to get
Yeah,
your own
where's
Jamie.
Jamie?
Gary. What are you doing?
Where's Jamie?
Just get Angie to be your Jamie.
Yes.
Oh, young Angie.
Yeah, yo.
But I mean, I have to go soon, by the way. But I know, so you're in Seattle, and that's like a pretty liberal. I don't. Are you in the city? Or are you like on the outs? I don't know, like what
So
the makeup of your town is. But have you like gotten any pushback at all?
I am born and raised. I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, despite my name. And I tell people I'm as American as apple pie. And I did watch like uh, there. I don't live in Seattle anymore. I live outside, about in a suburb called Maple Valley, about 45 minutes outside of Seattle, and that's because I'm raised in a family. And Seattle was it was unlivable. You know, crime, drugs, uh, high cost, all that stuff. And it wasn't like that growing up. It was a little bit more blue collar when I was growing up, and we always had a little bit of crime and stuff like that. And I do want to say this though. My gym, Seattle Kettlebell Club, was always a place where, fitness was paramount, and I never pushed my values on anybody. But I do feel like the older I get, I need to lead by example. And if anybody asks my opinion, I'm not afraid to give them my opinion anymore. And there was a time, like you said, yes, it's very liberal, and I was like, I felt like I couldn't say things because I was afraid to lose clients over it.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't say that I was Christian because it felt like more than half the people were just definitely not. And actually anti that. But I see the result of that in Seattle, and I don't think uh it doesn't seem to be working very well for them. And if we talk about uh what do when you're accepting of one another, you know what I mean? You should be able to
Yeah.
accept people if they're Christian or if they're Muslim or if they're Jewish or agnostic or whatever. I I had a tough upbringing. Okay, both parents alcoholic, drug use, dad in prison, mom, you know, died when I was 18. I didn't live with her when I was young. I was very angry as a kid, and I went through a portion of my life where I said I didn't believe in God. And I was more miserable and angry at the world, and I turned to alcohol myself. And I I feel like God is our father and our mother, right? And if you think bad thoughts about your actual mother or your father, what does that make you feel about yourself? Do you, if you have a disdain for your father or your mother, don't you actually have a disdain for yourself? And and I feel like people are going through lives and they actually don't believe in themselves because they don't believe in God. And they actually have a lack of self-esteem. They have an actual disdain for themselves, and they don't even realize it. And I'm I'm of the belief that we're all God's creatures, and we're all way more capable of a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. And I just go through life like that. And that's my feeling. I hold people to a very high standard, and and I'm here to put out that message, not just to make kettlebells, which is like it's just a that's an in it's one thing that I'm passionate about, one thing I love to do, but I
That must
really
be
think
your entire identity, Nikolai. You must only do
yeah,
kettlebells.
we're put on this earth to make a difference in as much of a way that we can, and in a positive way. We want to leave our our communities, our families better than what we left them. And I think that that's okay. Like, you know, if this platform kind of, yeah, we were talking about kettlebells for a minute, and we're kind of, riffing on
Hopping back
that.
and forth. Yeah, hopping back and
And
forth. There's not a
I think there's a lot of people out there that are also thinking the same thing, and they're afraid to say it themselves.
And there's people, and Nikolai, and there's people who completely disagree, and that's fine.
Yeah, and they can hit you up in the comments.
Yeah, and that's fine. And that's totally
Blast me
fine.
In the comments.
Yeah, and I you know, it's all love at the end. Bruce Lee said this: don't disagree or agree, but grow. That's it. It's not, and I always dislike the idea of having a debate. When I come into a debate, I come into battle, right? So I want to prove myself. What I rather enjoy is a discussion. I come with my arguments and with my ideas and my wisdom. I put it on the table. I said the same thing to Nick Tominello, and he agreed then at the end that this is his process too. I put my ideas on the table of ideas. Now you bring yours to the table, and we have a friendly and loving and fruitful discussion. At the end of the day, the arguments that survive are the ones that I have to apply. And that's why probably you asked me now, Eric, like, hey, yo, you getting pro kettlebell, right? What's up with yours? Well, here's the thing. The pro kettlebell is way better than a hollow core. So I can now walk around and say, okay, yeah, but you know what? I mean, they're good, but you know, I mean, the hollow core and blah, 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 blah. No, I go with the truth. I settle with the truth. This is a better kettlebell. Period. What do I have to do now? Can I now, but Gregor, you said that yours are awesome and hollow core is awesome. Yeah, until I discovered this new thing, which is better. So I want to be honest to myself, and I get lots of these comments because I've put out over 1,600 videos on the YouTube channel. I get lots of comments where they're like, but Gregory, you said that the get up is so bad, and now here you are doing it. And I said, here's the thing. The reason why I now call it the circus get up is because I detach myself from the idea that this is the magic bullet of the kettlebell exercises. It is not. It's been touted that way because it looks awesome. It's great for marketing. And if somebody has never done it, they won't be able to do it. So I can be the master, jump in and demonstrate that that I can do it. So you automatically think I'm the expert. I get the marketing aspect, right? I get it. I've learned some things. It's not the magic bullet. Swing, squat, press, way better in my opinion. However, it's still a cool exercise. It's still cool. Sometimes we mix it up. And then clients have to think and coordinate and wow and ooh and ah. Yeah, but it's not the bulk of the work because there's better exercises. But I don't want to go on a tangent now. My question, Eric, to you, where's your stance if you want to share your faith and where you're coming from?
Yeah, I'll share. Before I get into that, on our next conversation, I would like to talk about ab exercises because with what you said about the Turkish get-up.
I'll write that down.
Yeah. I've changed my perspective on abs and obliques over the past like 2 or 3 months. And I've started to incorporate just pure abdominal exercises because I feel like I had the incorrect perspective based off of like kettlebell commentary that I've just heard. Anyway, so we'll go into that next time. My faith, so I born and raised Jewish. It's still the first identifier, one of the first identifiers that I use when I describe myself. I was more attached to God or the idea of God as a kid. And as I get older, I've more transitioned more of my religious identity into like a cultural one, which is interesting to say to people who I know are fervently religious. Having said that, I think that a better society is a religious one. I think that people, especially groups of people, which is an important caveat, need a defined value system that everyone can agree upon. I think it's better for a group of people to have one religious stance than multiple, because I think, if the purpose of religion is to give people a defined set of values, then that breaks down if you have multiple religions in one group. I think that defeats the purpose, if that makes sense. And so I take a more societal, cultural, like anthropological stance towards religion now. I sort of view it through that lens, mostly just because I don't see physically the evidence of God's existence. And that's like an important aspect of belief for me, especially since I think I'm naturally a skeptic and I'm anti-dogmatic, but I really also because I like looking for the truth, I realize how important religion is for society and for individuals. And so if I were to have it one way, I would have a religious society. And I completely respect monotheism, God, religious people. I think that over time you see what works, and religion works for most people. If they don't have religion, if they don't have God, they find God in something else. And a lot of times that's politics. And I don't think that's a good thing. Um,
Or
so
celebrities.
I think I side more with religious people in terms of my values, probably because I grew up religiously, and so like those were predefined by me based off of my childhood and my upbringing. I think that I wish that I felt more religious. I just need to I need to see the evidence. I need to feel it, and I think those requirements for me to believe in something is just to feel and to see. And when I read certain, I think it's like the more magical um, things in the Bible, like the parting of the Red Sea and all that. I just wish that I saw it in person. Like I don't believe. I'm also someone who doesn't believe that aliens are here and visiting us, like UFOs. I'm just a natural skeptic, and I think that there's a similar thought pattern for a lot of people with a belief in fantastical ideas. Um, like I think we're evolved to believe in certain things that are greater than ourselves. And just like the internet and technology, it's a double-sided coin. There are good things to that and there are bad things to that. But what's most important is what works. And I think that a religious mindset works because it's how we evolved. And I think that we evolved that way. There's this good phrase, or a good saying, not everything that happens for a reason, but everything that survives for a reason.
Hmm.
And I think that religion survived for a reason. And I think a lot of it is because it helps. There are a lot of the like insects and animals are able to band together for a common cause through different means. I don't know if it's bees or ants, but some of them like release pheromones and it makes everyone act accordingly to the same way. Humans are unique in that we have these memes, these cultural ideas that shift everyone's thinking to the same point. And that's how we unite groups of people to act in a certain way. And once you have a group of people acting towards one goal, that gives them a better chance of surviving long term than if everyone's disparate and separate. And I think religion is a very powerful tool to do that. Whether it's for good or for the bad, obviously there's been a lot of negative religious wars, which, you know, that's just the fact of reality that certain people used religion to justify certain actions. And because religion has such a powerful like stranglehold over people's minds, it can be used for good or bad. That's just the root of it. But whether or not I believe in God, I say I'm agnostic. I just don't feel it. I wish I were more religious because I do think there is so much good and power in it. I am jealous of people who are so uh, fervent in their belief of God because when I was a kid, I remember there was a moment when I was like 8 or 9 years old where I just like felt it so strongly, and I remember just crying. Like I was crying on the carpet on. I remember the room in my living room in my first house and that I grew up in, and but over time I don't know, I like lost it, and I was like I don't really like
Do
I
you
would yeah.
do you believe in multiple dimensions?
I believe that it's possible, but I don't see the evidence for it. So there's two sort of methods to like you can have when I think of the scientific method, I think, you have to see evidence for it and then you can believe it, right? But
Hmm.
also there's the logical or mathematical reasoning where it's like, this potential, all of these things could exist statistically. So mathematically, and probabilistically, you should believe in it. But that doesn't,
Right.
I don't see the evidence of it actually believing. Like probabilistically, yes, I believe that they exist, but I haven't seen it. So like, therefore, why should I? It's the same as the simulation argument. Like probabilistically, we live in a simulation
Mm-hmm.
because you can have infinite simulations running. Therefore, we're most probably in a simulation. But I don't believe that we're living in a simulation because I haven't seen any evidence of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Maybe
I think
this book is interesting.
On guard.
Yeah, William Lane Craig.
Okay.
He
I'll write
lays
it down.
out. He lays out. Give me a second, Nikolai. He lays
Sure.
out an analytical, scientific perspective on why it is reasonable to believe that a God exists and where Earth comes from. It's hard to read. It's highly analytical. I'm having a tough time reading it. I put it a little bit to the side because it's very complex. It's also, I mean, English is my second language, so I have to think even harder. And then that's why Bruce Lee stuff I love. And then Nikolai, you can continue on. And this is why I love where Bruce Lee's coming from. Bruce Lee's coming from the East, so the East is very experiential, or based on experience and emotion, and the West is very analytical, right? And so I think melting both together is something that I'm trying to do. And William Lane Craig's book is very analytical, and probably you will enjoy this probably even more than I do, or maybe I just have to, increase my capacity in my intelligentsia to understand the book better. And yeah, that just might be interesting. So Nikolai, please continue.
Well, we talk about the Holy Trinity, right? Where it's, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I guess the way I kind of, and I believe I heard somebody else say this, and so I'm kind of repeating what I've heard. But if you think about, like, let's just say there's a person and he's on a 2-dimensional piece of paper, right? And I'm here in 3 dimensions, and I can pick up that piece of paper and I can turn it over, and I can still see that person's on that 2-dimensional piece of paper, but that person on that piece of paper cannot actually observe me, even though I'm manipulating the paper. I might be twisting it, crumpling it up, doing all these things. And if you believe that there are multiple dimensions, like, you might not be able to just like focus and observe God, because he's on the highest plane and able to affect all the dimensions underneath. But if you actually kind of like lose focus for a second and observe what's happening around you and how certain thoughts and actions that you take can actually change your own environment, or a lot of just changing your own way of thinking changes what happens to you in life and your own perspective. And that kind of like ties into that the simulation theory that you talked about. I have just noticed that just the simple act of changing my thoughts and my beliefs have completely changed my life. And that is my evidence for God. And I'm with you, Eric. I tend to be more logic minded, and I need to see evidence based stuff. But also, when I gave up control and they just talk about belief and be not afraid in the Bible over and over again, and started giving up some of that and just trusting that you know, it's hard for me to say, but I do see life and the world changing around me in a way that's not random, right? It feels like there is someone else in control of this. And um you know I'm willing to accept if I'm wrong, but I know, what I know is right is, like, I feel contentment in my heart, and I don't feel like fear. And whereas I did before, I felt empty, and I felt lost, and I felt angry. And I guess as long as I'm, feeling, and I'm just speaking about myself, and maybe people relate, maybe not. As long as I feel contentment and like I'm doing the right thing, and I think intention is just big. Are your intents good? And I think we know intrinsically it's good and what's bad. Then it makes me feel it makes me feel full, makes me feel happy. I don't feel so bad that I'm getting older, I don't, it just, it fills my life, and I'm not
Nikolai, you're
being
breaking
super
up a bit.
coherent on this, but
Nikolai, you're breaking
oh,
up a bit.
sorry.
Something with the internet? Yeah, maybe.
I'll just say
Yeah.
I even though we may not feel the same way, well, and even though we don't feel the same way about religion and God, I would never want to convert you into another way. Would never want to argue with you. I think it's awesome that it works for you. And I do again, I do believe in the power of it. I completely, totally respect it too. This is one of those prime examples where I would never want to debate someone if it works for them. And it's one of the few things where I can say that we can have completely different perspectives, and that's a good thing. Like most of the time we try to proselytize for one way or another because if it works for us, we really want other people to be in the same
Just like
path.
with kettlebells.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah.
You enjoy it so much, so you want everybody to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. But I hear you. And I think I've been in that mental state before, and I might be there again. I think my psychology and my constitution for how I think about reality won't let me get there at this point, even though I can get to the point where I respect it. And honestly, I enjoy being around religious people more than irreligious people because they're just happier. They're just a happier. I don't know if it's a correlation causation thing. We can delve into that, but
what's interesting, Eric? You know what's interesting? I see it a little bit differently than Nikolai, even though I see completely where he comes from. I do not connect my faith in God with my emotions. Not at all. I have times where I feel like I don't want to do anything with my life. I have time. I think we all have this, right? And I talked to a therapist recently, to a doctor of mine. He joins the classes where we train in our gym. And he talked to a therapist that said, human beings are conditioned to think that every day is supposed to be a good day. You're supposed to feel happy. You're supposed to feel blah, 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 blah. But there are days where you don't feel like anything. There are days where you want to completely stop everything you're doing. There are days where you wake up and you feel like, wow. And these days are completely normal. It's part of the human condition. And I love what the therapist said. He said, what you can then do is let your loved ones around you know that you have one of these days. So that they know, okay, currently I'm not capable of making clear decisions because I have one of those days, because it's part of my human condition where I have brain fog. It doesn't have to be depression, but it's just normal to have these thoughts, right? And this is where I kind of try to detach myself from the way I feel. Maybe I'm overdoing it in that regard to a certain extent. And I was looking for that scripture when you were talking, Nikolai, and I found this one, Psalms 19:1. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of his hands." So what this actually says is God can be seen in nature, right? So this is where my analytical understanding comes from. It's not the feeling. I don't think that it is connected to my emotional state, because my emotional state seems to be in complete chaos sometimes. It's rather connected to to the idea of sovereignty. And this is where I now come from. I grew up with this idea of, we were very definitely influenced by American preachers. My mother was influenced by all of these guys, by Frederick Price, Creflo Dollar, Copeland, and all these weasels. I'm sorry if I'm using that term, and I don't want to disrespect anybody who's following these guys, but they are just out there to get your money. And this really turned, I kind of like, and Benny Hinn and all these guys who proclaim they're faith healers. And there was this one instance where one guy said, where I almost lost my faith, where this one guy said, "Listen, Benny Hinn, if you can heal people on an instant notice, go to a children's hospital, right? Isn't that the best place to heal people? And then just raise these kids where they're dying from, right, with cancer and everything, and then make this." No, that doesn't work, right? You're out there to get your money. And that fills me with anger. So then I even though I never lost my faith, I kind of like diverted back from these money hungry televangelists. And now I'm kind of like getting to the John MacArthur idea. I'm sure you're familiar with him, Nikolai. John MacArthur, he's a heavyweight from in the apologetic movement, where they're kind of like trying to bring Christianity back to a certain idea where it's not that God heals you all the time, where it's not that God's going to make you rich. God is not a vending machine that you can then use to feel better or to get your money or whatever. I do believe that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, as the Psalms. I think the Psalms say this. But at the end of the day, I think God is in control. So it's the idea of sovereignty. There's this reverence of God that whatever happens in my life, I want to be like Job, right? You guys know the story of Job?
The book of Job, yeah.
Exactly. So this is my hero. It's not, of course, we can talk about David or Jacob or Isaac, right? And I have actually, when I look at my heritage, I have the blood of Isaac and Ishmael in my body, because my dad is from the Muslim side of the world, and my mom's from the Christian side of the world. So I have both of these ideas, and that's why I vibe with Muslims, but I tend to gravitate towards the Christian side of things because I was raised, also how you said it, right? A little bit conditioned as well in a Christian, very Christian-like setting, which is Switzerland. And so this is where I come from. I think the analytical, sovereign perspective to honor God and give him the place of, just like Job gave him the place. When everybody was telling him to his face, cuss out your God, and he's killing you, he wants to destroy everything you had, and God, and Job kept his honorings. He always, and this earns so much respect from me, because I love this one guy. He said, you don't have to tell me how to celebrate when I'm winning, right? That's easy. You have to tell me how to celebrate when everything is breaking down. Mm-hmm. So I come from this perspective, and I think that's one of the reasons why I don't fall for this guru stuff, for Pavel is God, or name anybody. I'm giving a kettlebell example, or Dr. Oz, or Dr. Phil, or Joe Rogan, or Brad Pitt, or Oprah Winfrey. Name anybody you want, because I believe at the end of the day, we all face Judgment Day, and I believe that we are all humans. We are mere mortals. So I do respect what you have to say, but I do not worship you like a god, because we see what happens to people if they get worshipped like gods. And as somebody, one of our clients, he told me this. He said, the reason why the only capacity to be worshipped God is the only being that has the capacity to be worshipped. Humans don't have the capacity, because when humans are worshipped, they break into pieces. That's exactly what happens. If people worship human beings, celebrities, to godlike status, they fall apart. They fall into drugs most of the time, or alcohol, or whatever. Look at the rock stars. Look at the pop stars. Look at all these guys. And so this is where my faith is helping me to stand away from the crowd, look at it that we are just human beings having conversations with each other. And if I ever meet Pavel, just like I met Steve Carter, my sensei, I have complete reverence and respect, because I believe I stand on the shoulder of these giants, but they're not infallible, just like I am not. And just like, I love how you said this, Eric, right? Hey, just because you say something about that topic doesn't make you the ultimate expert. And the three of us, I consider us kettlebell experts. And still, at the end of the day, we can see things differently or even wrong if we get presented with better evidence. Right? That's the idea of science and moving things forward. And that's why I change my mind if you bring up arguments that make lots of sense, which I cannot logic. If I defend my own ideas and they don't stand the test of logic, I'm doing myself a disservice, right? Mm. And I think my faith just helps me to when this thing grows and we get more popularity, and people and like us and enjoy what we do. Like I said, and I think I told you this yesterday or 2 days ago, Nikolai, right? Where I said, I sometimes get these comments on my podcast or on YouTube, Pavel wouldn't approve of this, right? And I'll never want anybody to use my name for this. I don't know if I said this in this podcast now, but
yeah, you said that. Yeah.
I said it, right? I don't want that. And reading through Joe Campbell's book, there's this one sentence that sticks out like a sore thumb. And it says, the best form of art is anonymous.
Wait, sorry, you cut off halfway through. The best what?
The best form of art is
anonymous. Oh, okay.
And Bruce Lee follows this up. And I wrote this down. I have to share this with you. This is so powerful. The way to truth. You have to listen to this. And I completely, wholeheartedly agree. Not probably in every sense of it, but when it comes to this idea of training. So he says, number one is you have to seek truth, right? I think we all done this, right? We have, let's put it back to kettlebells. So we have gotten enamored with kettlebells. We found out, we tried it, and probably the most of us, we realized, wow, this is different than a dumbbell. This is different than a machine. I can't just sit down and pump out some reps and be good with it. I'm like, oh, this is different, right? So we have to seek truth. Then you have to become aware of truth's existence. I love this. So right, in my case, it was Steve Carter. So I studied Steve Carter. I worked with him. And before I worked with him, I was made aware of him. Then you have to perceive the direction of truth. The way I see myself is I had two options, either go the hardstyle route or go Steve Carter's route, or Pavel or Steve. And I went with Steve because Steve was way open-minded, and Pavel was still that tough guy stuff that I don't enjoy and I don't like. Then you have to understand truth, right? When Steve Carter certified Angie and me, I had to put in lots of reps to understand what he was really talking about. Then you have to experience truth. This is powerful, right? Because when you start working with the kettlebell, you put it into practice, you get into the swings and cleans, you melt with the kettlebell, you become one with it. This is exactly when you experience what kettlebell training is all about. And when all of us get a little bit mad inside, when you see a popular figure talking about kettlebells and you clearly understand that no, this is not how it's supposed to be experienced. It's not a dumbbell. It's not a weird shaped machine. It's something completely different, right? And then you have to master truth. And I believe you can only master the truth if you have been taught the proper way. You cannot master the I had so many folks come up to me. I've learned from videos. This is great, my man, but you have to learn from the legends who went before you. They pay it forward. Videos is not enough. You said this recently, right? In this podcast, Eric. You said, a video, yes, there goes some stuff. There is some work that goes into it, but there's a life's work in a book. So what is rather worth your time, right? Then, I love this. Now, this is where lots of people now stop, right? I master truth, then I'm good. And Bruce Lee takes it to the next level. He said, now you have to forget truth. Now, I enjoy this the most. It's like, this is the top of the pyramid, right? And this is where Nikolai, right? When we talk about kettlebell sport, we talk about the technical analysis. We talk about all that stuff. This is great. But I just saw recently a woman. I saw her compete on Instagram on somebody's feed. And her snatch technique looks very strange. Very strange to my eye. You know what? I don't really care because she won the competition. So who cares? Nobody. You can come up to her and say, yeah, but your backswing was not that good. Your amortization's not that good, all that kind of stuff. Who cares? She won. She clearly knows how to do it. And then, here's the next, I love this. Here's the next level. Forget the carrier of truth. So forget the guy who taught it to you. This takes the guy or the gal who taught this stuff to you out of the equation so you don't worship this person. Then return to the primal roots of truth. I haven't yet figured out what that really means. And then the last one, repose in the nothing. This is Bruce Lee, guys. And this is why I think I am the Jeet Kune Do of kettlebell training. I am so in love with Bruce Lee is sharing. And I feel his disdain for styles and mechanics. When you read through his stuff, I feel exactly the same. I don't know why I got here, but I just had to share this.
No, I agree. And I think I'm going through a similar journey. I haven't researched his view. I wrote down the book, so I'm going to look into it. But I can definitely appreciate that. And it's also, you're talking about the hero's journey. You can't just end the journey at the top of the mountain. You got to keep going, right?
That's a good point. I think, I'm sorry if I interject. I think even Joe Campbell or somebody in the beginning of the book even mentions this to a degree where it's like, it's not even a journey. Or it's not, because the journey somehow implies that there's an end. Right? So I go from A to B. So it has to be a different description. I'm paraphrasing, but I like the concept because it's not a form where you arrive at peak level. And this is what bothers me the most with RKC and Strong First and all these guys. That's what bothers me the most. You say absolutes. You come with, and this kettlebell sport guys are not exempt from this. I think no style is exempt from this. With this is the way to do it. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I have enough confidence to say this now because I've spent lots and lots of time with the tool, talked to guys from all around the world when it comes to kettlebells. Not saying that I know everything, but I'm at a point now where I don't believe in these forged systems. Like I'm saying, use no style as a style. Use no limitation as a limitation. Not saying that the mechanical skills are not important. But what I'm trying to say is if you come up with the absolute, this is the way to do it. It's a red flag to me that something is wrong. You're either using marketing gigs or, and who said this on this podcast? Your crowd is, I think Nick Tomanello, in a different sense. Your crowd, your demographic, no. A guy on Reddit said this. Your demographic is expecting this from you. If you have always been the guy who was touting absolutes and you've built a huge following, these guys expect these absolutes, and they also expect that you come with the wisdom from a secret chamber from somewhere in the tundra of Siberia. And now you come up with this fascinating research that is 50 years old, and this proves that the research in the West is completely wrong. And this is what, you see where I'm coming from? So, yeah. Of course, these guys expect this. Going on a tangent here. I apologize.
I gotta head out, guys. I'm sorry.
Appreciate it.
We've been at this for 2.5 hours, but I would like to continue this conversation. So
we will.
So yeah, I'll look out for a message. In the chat.
Yes.
And we'll continue. So I'll leave it to you guys, but just want to say thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Appreciate it, brother.
Nice talking to you, Eric.
Bye, Eric. Awesome.
We're gonna have to change this to the Kettlebell Philosophers channel.
Yes, most definitely. You know, like we talked about 2 days ago, right? And then a couple of minutes, and then I have to call it quits too. But sure. It's just like we talked, right? A couple of days ago. Bringing the kettlebell away from the dungeon. This set in stone ideas, and this just, you know. And I talked to Angie today. I said, you know why I even believe that Pro Kettlebell is such an awesome piece of equipment, and why I think that Nikolai is so solid. We talked about it 2 days ago, and I wanted to say this on the record now. Because one of our clients, right, he ordered the kettlebell through us. He ordered it, and then he sent you an image, right, where something is broken on the handle or something's not that perfectly done. And you said it, he put me in the copy in CC, and then you said, oh, something slipped through quality control. I'm going to instantly replace it. Don't worry about it. And this is exactly that type of mindset that I have too, right? It's just wanted to say this on the record, man.
We're old school.
Most definitely.
No, I appreciate. I mean, that's when my wife and we had a similar discussion. It's just like, just talking to you and seeing the way you just get a certain impression. And I've done business with people that are, maybe they're only concerned with business or making money or but at this point, like, doing things the right way is what matters most. And I sleep great at night, even though I have like stress. If you knew the level of stress that sometimes I have, like dealing with the manufacturers and sales and like the debt on top of debt.
And you have a family. I mean, if I can just imagine.
But there's just like, there are a few things you can control in your life, and that's how you who you deal with and how you deal with your own business. And like, you can eliminate a lot of your own personal stress if you follow. And my wife is my moral compass. She like we help each other, we steer each other the right direction. I feel like you have a similar relationship with Angie, and it's helpful when you work with other people to have a similar set of values, because it is easy to get down the wrong track, and to put other things that aren't maybe so important in front of what truly is important. And that's just doing the right thing and doing right. So no, I appreciate you, man. I'm sorry
Same
I was
here.
late to you guys to the
Totally
podcast today.
fine.
I
Totally
totally
fine. And see, that's why I want to make it just like this, right? It's not. I think I got these vibes from Joe Rogan, where you can just. I don't know if if you've seen this conversation with Alex Jones, where it's like four of them. It's like Eddie Bravo, it's him, Joe Rogan, and Alex Jones, and then they talk for like 4 hours, and then one of the guys is like, "Yo, I gotta go to the toilet real quick." Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So he stands up. So it's just natural. It's just being human beings, right? And then yo, Nikolai's a little bit late. He jumps in. I don't care about this. It's not that especially on the podcast, right? Maybe on the main channel where I create pieces of content with high value. Where I really want. I'm not saying that this is not high value what we're doing right now, but this is more like the scripted version where I want to have these little pieces of content because I know that works right there. That's why I created a different YouTube channel for the podcast, because it's a different medium. But at the end of the day, that's why it's funny when Eric said, like, yeah, I know we're not talking about kettlebells now, but conversations take us where conversations take us. When I had the conversation with Nick Tominello, we didn't talk about kettlebells one bit, maybe just a little bit. And then it steered on.
Kettlebells are an analogy for me in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think kettlebells have led me to certain places in life, and I've also been led to kettlebells, and it's a medium for a lot of different things and so it doesn't always have to be about kettlebell. And the pendulum, boy, isn't that pendulum an analogy for life?
Yeah. What goes up must come down. Yes.
You know, and just being able. So I'm okay going there. And
me too. Me too.
So
that's totally fine. I think at the end of the day, Nikolai, you know, it's just these conversations. I mean, I don't really care how much views they get. I'm learning so much from these conversations, and I also assume that I make friends to a certain extent within the kettlebell network sphere all around the world. Like you said, the kettlebell has taken my business and myself all around the world. I remember when Steve was here, and I was like, you know, my goal is to build kind of like a kettlebell hub. And he said, yeah, I mean, you have goals, that's what counts. And recently when I talked to him, he was like, wow, you actually, you make true of your promise right there. I really enjoy. And he's like, I love watching that the student is not outgrowing the master, but he's following the same footsteps. And I mean, analogy of life is, and I think that's the reason why part of it is now faith related when I have these conversations, because the kettlebell is taking care of your body, right? But like, we are threefold being, right? We're body, spirit, and soul. So taking care of the body means training. Taking care of your soul means making sure you have your emotions in check, maybe getting even therapy, right, to make sure your systems are working properly. And then the spirit side of things, it's what, right, it connects everything. And how can we not talk about faith? And like I said, if somebody disconnects and says, hey, Gregory, I do not vibe with you being a Christian, I say, you know what? Go with God, but go. Or stay. Be blessed. Right? What can I say now? And I love what you said. I had the same issue about sharing my faith and even sharing my heritage where I was, because it's not that big of a racism deal that I've experienced, but it's a little bit here in Switzerland where I live. And now that I've grown older, I've stopped caring about it. I think it's probably this, you mature in your wisdom where you're like, hey, listen, love you, brother. I hope you make it to heaven, but I hope you train with kettlebell. I hope you're good. I hope nothing bad hits you. I hope you don't die early. I hope you have a blessed life. But if we don't connect, we don't connect. And Tupac has a great saying about this. He says, hey, I want you to eat, just not at my table. Love this, right? That's fine. That's for sure. Yeah. I want you to eat, but not at my table. I love you, brother, but it's totally fine. And here's another thing that I've realized. When you grow a little bit in popularity, there's always people who are going to dislike what you say, but the majority, I think, they vibe with you. That's the reason why they gravitate towards you, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, aren't disagreements the reason why we grow? where somebody can really challenge you on a topic where you're then forced to rethink your position, and you're like, wow, let me think about this. I don't have an answer. Let me go back to this. I really have to evaluate. This is actually the scientific method, isn't it?
Yeah. People of high value can accept differences in opinion and lifestyle and everything, and be objective and not be angry, or, and they can just agree to disagree,
Exactly.
as long as we're not, hurting anybody else, right?
You might even say, you might even say that we hurt, somebody else's feelings get hurt sometimes when you say certain things or have a certain stance of you.
But they're your feeling.
Yeah, they're your, right? It's a tough discussion then, right? To say, I apologize, brother, if I hurt your feelings, but that's my stance. That's how I believe. And see, this is where I also believe having this higher authority, where how Jesus said it, that you can lay everything on the altar, is like, hey, all that stuff, I'm just a human being, right? I lay this all right in front of you, and I do what I can. I try to move forward. I know I'm a completely flawed and broken human being, and I try to do my best, and everything that I can't get a hold of, I just, I try to shift it off towards you. And having this anchor, and I love how you said this, we can be wrong, right? At the end. So we die and nothing happens. Okay? So boom, we cease to exist. All right, then that's the case. But the way I live my life now, it's just having this higher authority that has its hand on the thermostat, not just in worldly affairs, but just in your own affairs, is something that is really soothing to the mind. That it's like, hey, and I think this is where emotions come back in, right? Where you feel sort of contentment, where you're saying, hey, where I feel that too. It's like this, hey, even if it doesn't look like God's in control, I believe He's in control. I give it to you, and that's fine. And if somebody else finds it in a different space, like I'm reading Joe Campbell's book, where he kind of disrespects Christianity to a certain extent, and I have to force myself to read it through because I think there's lots of wisdom in there, right? So I don't disrespect Joe Campbell now, right? It's, hey, this guy's done amazing work, apparently. I have to read through the book and then see where it ends up. But I can entertain a thought without accepting it, right? That's also, it's a little bit gymnastics of the brain, or mental gymnastics, but it's possible. We help aspiring kettlebell coaches become confident as kettlebell practitioners and educators in only 10 weeks. If you want to find out more about our method, check the first link in the description and sign up for our waiting list.